Hello and welcome to OrangeJuiceCast. I'm Jaz, and I'm joined here by my two lovely friends. Introduce yourselves, Otis and Matt.
I'm Otis. I was on the last podcast.
I'm Matt. I have done a few of these, so hello.
Yeah, also known as Football 434.
Oh wow, I'm sure there's a lot of crossover between my YouTube channel and whoever watches this. But
I'm sure.
If you want football analysis videos, I'm sure there'll be a link in the description. Am I right, Jaz?
Well, maybe.
No. If I could be so lucky. Yeah. Well, have a look down there. You might find something. But anyway,
we're here today to talk about all the games we played in 2020. A shit year as it was, and since there really wasn't too many new releases, I think a lot of us just want to talk about some of the games we've played that we've caught up on from the last couple of years and maybe even before.
As we said last year, nothing could top 2019 because literally the best games ever made came out that year.
Yep.
And people were wrong to think that that year was the waiting room for this year. If you thought that, you're wrong.
Yeah. This year is it does have its gems, but it's nowhere near the level of 2019. I don't know if you'd agree, Matt, or...
Yeah, I have a memory like a sieve, though, so I'm trying to remember what I fucking played in 2019.
Outer Wilds?
Yeah. Yes, Outer Wilds was excellent.
Out of fucking the greatest game ever.
Yeah, that was good.
We've got quite a few... I've played quite a few games. I think Otis has played quite a few games, but a lot of them
not as much as last year,
games that we're just going to list off and get out of the way so that we can actually talk about some of the ones we want.
And we have talked about a few of them earlier in the coronavirus podcast we did.
Yeah, so I'm not going to touch on too much. Like Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing, I think everybody agrees. Yeah, we like those games are fine. Doom's amazing. I didn't like Animal Crossing too much, but people loved it, so fair enough.
Yeah, I like it. I didn't play it since that podcast, so take that how you will. That's
fair enough. Yeah. Has anybody played Fall Guys?
Oh yeah.
I played that once, and I was like, oh, that's Takeshi's Castle.
It's exactly what it is.
I actually played it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I got it because
I like it.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I got it. It was free on PS Plus.
Oh shit!
For those dirty console players such as myself. At the time, I didn't have. No, I would have had my game on PC. But anyway, when it first released back, when was it? March?
I don't know. Yeah. It was like summer, wasn't it?
Was it summer?
No way. I'm gonna give
it July.
I know this fucking year feels like a century.
Jesus Christ! It was August.
Yeah,
fuck! I thought it was February.
No.
Well.
Oh my god! These months are dragging.
For the month of August, it was free on PS Plus for everyone with PS Plus. So it did the Rocket League thing. When Rocket League made its big hit and Storm, it was also the PS Plus free game that month. So I hedged my bets when they announced it. You know, there's this thing called Fall Guys coming. I'd seen a trailer, I think. But more importantly, I was like, it's free on PS Plus. It's going to be the Rocket League thing again, where this is going to blow up. You know, multiplayer, it's free, you have the install base there, and then everybody jumps on that and goes and gets on Steam and stuff for those catching up once it gets big. And it's exactly what happened. And I really liked it, actually. I think it's really good for what it is.
Yeah.
Especially because, you know, I'm sure it's cheap on Steam. I don't know how much it was on release, but I've seen it discounted loads now. And it was free on PS Plus. For what it was, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I think they've done very well with it as obviously a battle royale style. I think I even said this like 4 years ago or something when it started battle royale craze. I was like, I'm surprised they haven't done Takeshi's Castle yet, and they have. They've done it very well. It's very quick to get into the games. The mini games themselves are mainly fun, and even the ones that are shit, you know, I think everybody agrees with.
Team games, fuck shit. That. Yeah. Just always team with fucking thumbless mongoloids.
Yeah, I know. But you know, as it's very easy to pick up and play, but no matter what, you don't have a massive advantage even if you've played it like 100 times. You have a general idea of how to get through, and it just depends on just, you know, how other people play as well.
Which is the point, right? I saw a lot of. I think games like this. Sometimes they do this weird thing where they sort of bridge between, your hardcore like players that play it because it's the latest thing, and getting onto this. So it bridges this gap between like hardcore players who are playing it because it's the latest thing and it's out and it's competitive, right? It is competitive multiplayer. So there's that, but also bridges the gap to like casuals who are like, oh, give me the controller. It's a funny bean game. It's one button. I run and jump and get to the end, right? So I feel like if you're one of those casual players and you go into the game with that casual mindset, then there's nothing really to complain about. It's a fun time. But I did see a lot of, I guess I used the word hardcore gamers.
Quote unquote.
Are like, they need to change it. They need to get rid of team games because then I don't have total control over whether I win or lose.
Yeah, I know.
And like that's not fair. Like how can I win all the time if I get chucked with a bad team and stuff? And like, elements. I like Fall Guys, but some of it's too random where I can't win all the time. And weirdly there was some people going in with like a competitive sort of mindset where you might go in with that sort of mindset with Fortnite or Call of Duty Warzone,
Smash Bros or
I'm
Party.
I'm talking about
it's all for the party. It's
right.
just randomness. It's like it's not they didn't make it in mind to be like a e-sport.
Right.
But with that being said, there is that now the most popular scrub quotes tweet of all time, which is it's just the guy doing the hexagon game, and all he's doing is just like jumping on every hexagon.
Yeah.
And then you've got the guy next to him going, what is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
How could you take this game so seriously? He's just fucking jumping on the hexagons.
Yeah.
So like there's a fucking middle ground. Yeah, it's not like that's not toxic behaviour.
Yeah.
No, trying to win is not toxic behaviour. I think there's not much else to say about it, but before we move on, I don't think any of you guys have played any of the updates or the seasons or anything.
I played it literally once.
I've actually played each of them. So they seem to do a thing where they do mid-season, they do an update, and the updates they do fix so many problems. Like they change like how the games are played or how the controls are. So a lot of the things it feels so much better in the second half.
Nice.
They've taken all the fan criticism, fixed how some platforms move. They randomize a lot of the standard games you have, so it's not just like one. If it's the platform tilty one, it's not just the same every time. The platforms change their orientation sometimes, so there are different sort of runs each time, and they genuinely fix some of the like grabbing mechanics and stuff. And then in the next season, they just add in loads of cool new mini games. Like the second season, they had a lot of mini games where you had to grab hold of stairs and move them into place, and then jump up the stairs to jump over on things. But other people obviously would move them out of the way, and it seemed like a lot of things were themed around that. And then the latest ones like ice games, they're all fun, and they seem to take a lot of care, considering they sold it quite cheap at the start, and it was quite popular.
It was very popular, and one game in specific killed it. Not killed it because people still play it. There's like that first month or whatever, everyone was playing that shit. And then
absolutely.
A game that came out 2 years ago, for some reason, just blew up.
Well,
and that game, shall we? It's called Among Us. You played it, we played it. It's good.
Yes,
it's good.
It's Mafia in space.
Just quick on this, because everybody knows what Among Us and Fall Guys is. We probably don't need to talk about it much.
Exactly. Yeah.
But actually, the point I want to make is that I'm surprised there aren't more games like this. When this might get a bit deep, but bear with me on the point I'm trying to make. When the Wii came out back in 2006, and video games sort of became very mainstream sort of from then on, not just because of the Wii, but it became less of a niche basement thing and more of a my granddad plays games now and stuff. I really thought we'd get an influx of really simple multiplayer games like this that one button, pick up and play, everybody can play them, real catering to the casual audience. And I think Nintendo tried some of that, but on their console. But the other, it wasn't happening on PC, and it wasn't really happening on the other consoles. So I'm not actually surprised when stuff like Fall Guys, where loads of people who don't really play games, but you give them a controller and it's like, oh, it's the funny bean game. You fall over, you run the obstacle course, and it's a smash hit. And I'm not surprised. Like there was and Among Us is very similar. It's the funny beans, and you run around and you kill your friends, and then you do the lie, and like that's it.
It's because they're cheap and you can only play them online. Yeah, which is perfect for right now.
Yeah, I mean that too. But
the thing, now that you've got crossplay as well, it's definitely a lot easier. So it's not like, oh, if you want to play a casual game, you need a fucking gaming PC.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can also play it on the Xbox or whatever you have. And it's all. I agree. It's very difficult to find simple concept games that you can pick up and play with friends for a laugh for a couple of weeks or a couple of days or whatever. But yeah, I'm glad games like this are popular now. Cheap, fun games you can play with anyone. Even on mobile, you can play it.
Make. I know this isn't the point of the podcast, especially when we go on to talk about Hades and stuff later. But make more games which can be played by people who have never played games before, and you can give someone a controller and be like, "Oh, all you do is run through this obstacle course." Well, Among Us is a bit more involved, but it's not that much more involved.
But you can watch it for 2 minutes and go,
like,
I
get it.
What the concept is. Absolutely. I understand. I'm quite a fan of how it's designed as well, because you're obviously given tasks to do. I'm not going to go too much into fucking Among Us. It's One Night Ultimate Werewolf or Mafia, but given slightly more. It made it into like a decent game because like you get tiny mini games that are completely easy to understand the first time you see them, and this gives you less about trying to suss out who the bad guy is and more about actually going around doing things. And even when you die, you can still do these things and affect the games in some way.
Yeah, Mafia is inherently interesting because of the cerebralness and the discussion that it promotes. Yep. And it's not
more
just
about
like
your friends.
It's less of, and the reason Among Us is so good in comparison to other things that have tried it, like Town of Salem. Town of Salem is literally just Mafia.
Yes,
like with no changes. But this, like you said, the little mini games, even though there's not much to them at all, having something to do and like work around that is what makes it so successfgive, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and crazy how it blew up as well. Fuck all your marketing budget and chucking millions of TV ads. Just give it to give it to some streamer and be like, yo, play this. And if he likes it, well then there you go. You've now
That's
sold
it. Game of the year.
You've now sold 1 billion copies 2 years on the release. Amazing.
Absolutely fucking mad. They were making Among Us 2, and then they had to scrap everything because it was getting so popular and just make it into like updates.
Wise decision as well. Wise decision. That was good.
Yeah, I mean, you get games like I'll talk about Cyberpunk and stuff later, which are just so corporate, so made by committee. They're like sandboxes and everything. Like everything, Call of Duty is a fucking battle royale. Everything just to fit with a niche audience, and then you just get random indie games that just have a clever idea. Or not even a clever idea, just like a well thought out idea, and then they blow up. And it's these AAA studios are always going to be like 3 years behind all the time, and it's funny to see. It's really funny to see. Expect imposter modes in a lot of games coming forward.
It's the Simpsons versus South Park problem, where South Park they're on the ball because it takes fucking no effort to make.
Yeah,
and then the Simpsons have to do a fucking Harlem Shake 5 years after Harlem Shake.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'll say on Among Us, and it completely doesn't matter because it is playable and everyone's playing it, but you can tell when playing it, this game is jank. I reckon the code behind the scenes is like spaghetti falling over each other.
Oh yeah.
You can't change.
They mentioned that in an update. It's like we kind of wish we did do it Among Us too, because this is just fucking hard to do anything.
You can't change imposters in the lobby. You have to make a new one.
Yeah, I know.
The servers fall
maps.
over. You can't change maps. Everyone's like, "Oh, I've got to go on NA and then type in the room code." It almost doesn't matter because it's playable still, but it is funny how they're kind of saddled with this now.
Well, it's just 3 guys, just not 3 guys. It's like I think the main designer is a woman.
Yeah,
and they're just like one of the first games they've made. Didn't think about it much a couple of years ago. Mildly successful, and now it's just like, oh, we have to go on like Nintendo Directs and say it's coming to Switch and shit. What? We're just people. It makes me laugh. All right,
we've established Among Us is good. Moving on.
I think the best thing to do, I'll say 3 small games I've played, and I'll talk to them about them for 30 seconds each, maybe, and then we'll move on to you, Otis, and then you, Matt. Just so we can get
games that came out this year, or games that you played this year.
Just generally games I've played. So
cool.
I'm going to talk about Piku Niku. It was a very cheap game on the Switch that I thought I played. Very funny. It's a silly platformer that is just focuses on weird sounds and weird like humor. It's like an hour long, but it's very fun and it's very cheap. I can't say much more than that. I had a laugh playing it. What else have we got here? Let's talk about fucking Nier Automata.
You haven't finished that yet.
No, but I'm not going to finish it. I'm sure it's really good. I don't enjoy these games. I'm sorry.
He said the forbidden words. He's not going to finish Route C.
Yeah, well, I don't want to. Sorry, I don't. I don't like playing the game twice, and it's exactly the same game. It's boring.
It's worth it. It's worth it, Jazz. It's like Stone Ocean.
Whatever.
It's like Stone Ocean.
It's not like Stone Ocean.
It is like Stone Ocean. You don't understand. You'll understand if you keep playing it.
I like Devil May Cry 5. I like the combat, but I'm never going to play it again. Because I'm not interested in character action games. I just don't find them interesting.
Everyone's wrong. Moving on.
I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's really philosophically great. I'm sure, but it's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Oh, I'm riled up. Let's move on. What's the next game?
The next game I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy 9. It's very, very good. It's like the third best Final Fantasy.
The last good Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy. Standard, very good game.
It's a good game.
That's it. It's just there's nothing else. I had to install a mod to get rid of the loading screens and the fucking really bad lag.
Yeah, the port isn't very good, but there is a very, very, very good mod.
Yes,
and it fucking used AI to update all of the backgrounds to HD, which is fucking crazy.
Yes, that's great. I mean, that's the thing is I don't want to have to wait around a minute and a half between every battle for it to load in. That is untenable for a random encounters game. So this mod made it playable, and it's very good with the mod. Without the mod, unplayable, unfortunately. Yeah, that's me. Move on. Yeah, okay, I know, but I can't wait that much for random encounters.
ADD. Right, is that your 3 games?
That's my 3 games.
All right, let me.
God, Otis, hit us with 3 objectively better games.
Right, Return of the Obra Dinn.
Oh,
we talked about this when we did.
What a
the
game.
GOTY together 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can't say anything about it without ruining the game. Like Outer Wilds, but not quite as good. You know, I had to brute force some puzzles, but it's very interesting and you know, storytelling. Blah blah blah. Lucas Pope, good boy. Well done, you.
One of the most innovative puzzle games, I think. It's
very cool. I like being a detective, and I feel smart.
Yes.
Total War Warhammer 2.
Oh yeah.
Why didn't they call it Total Warhammer 2 Part 1 and
First Blood
Part 2? I've been trying to break into new genres all the time, and because like when I do, it's like, oh, there's this whole new landscape of games that I can enjoy. This I cannot fucking for the life of me get into it. It's really fucking cool. I can see why people like it, but I just can't do it. It's too hard. I can't do battles. I can't move my guys around.
People love this shit. It's not for me.
But like Total War has been a thing with my friends since like fucking primary school. Like people I know are fucking obsessed with Rome Total War, and it's always been a thing that I want to get into. This one is by far like the most creative, obviously because it's fantasy shit and you can do a lot with that. But it's hard to get into. You have to know a lot. You have to be a fucking general in real life. You need to read Sun Tzu.
I love Rome Total War. Massive fan.
Yeah, this. If you like Total War, this like just imagine you have wizards. You can fucking summon fireballs and shit. It's really cool. It's really cool. But I can't do it. Maybe I'll try again. But you know. Spyro 2.
Oh wow.
Reignited trilogy. I'm a PlayStation boy. I grew up with the PlayStation. That's the PlayStation noise. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll play Spyro 2. I could play a platformer. Fuck it. And it's a very good remake. I will say that, but it doesn't. It's really just a checklist of things to do. Like you don't explore. You just go through the level until you get 100%, and it's really fucking easy. There's no challenge to anything. Even the infamous minecart thing is like, oh, I'm older than 3, so I can actually do this now. And like, yeah, it just ends, and you're like, oh, And the thing that I noticed when I was doing it is like with a good platformer that you're exploring, you're like going to these nooks that are like so gamey. If you see what I mean, it's like this is a hut, and there's a slight gap behind it. I wonder if there's anything there, and there's nothing there. It's just like, you know. So then I was like, what other platformer could I play that sort of rewards you for exploration? It's like the wonder of exploration, you get rewarded things. So then after that, I immediately played Super Mario Odyssey.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring this up before we give Matt a chance to fucking
I might
do his other games, but yeah, okay.
I might just stay quiet on this, but yeah.
And I played that, and I was like, there's things everywhere, and it's fun to explore, and I have all of these movement options that I can do, and I can I wonder if I can get up there, and then you try to get up there, and you're like, I couldn't get up there. There's actually a thing there. I was like, that's a good game right there.
It's the best Mario game, and I agree. I mean, you know, I can see people's problems with it in that it really is the most. I'd say it's the most everyone friendly.
Sure.
Children the age of 3 can play this game, and then sweaty old men like us can play this game as well and enjoy it.
I didn't like get every moon or anything. I just got enough to move on. I basically got all the ones that I could get without trying, essentially, and then I moved on. But it's just good. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm probably never gonna play it again, but it's a nice experience.
Yeah, I think if they had DLC, I would have picked it up, but they didn't, and so fair enough. I've said for a while that I prefer Banjo-Kazooie style platformers to straightforward linear obstacle courses. So this is right up my street.
It has better movement than Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not a 3D platformer guy. As I said, I grew up on the PlayStation, so all I had was Spyro. So I haven't played really any Mario 3D game extensively, and this is the first one I beat, so I really liked it.
Yeah, this is the only platformer game you'll get where you get almost parkour YouTube videos of people hey, I'm gonna do this awesome cool moves and skip this part of the level, and it's like, okay. I mean, they really programmed a lot of cool stuff into this game, but
yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Good game,
right, Matt?
Right, Matt?
I hate Mario Odyssey, but we'll leave it there so it doesn't turn into a Mario Odyssey podcast. Major issues with it.
We need Tom Ward for that. So.
But I'm beating out 2-1 here.
Go on, Matt.
I'm seething.
Tell us your
shaking.
games you think are better than Mario Odyssey.
Let me just stop shaking with rage from the last 2 minutes. Right, it's 2021. You're listening to this podcast. Let me talk about Chrono Trigger.
Bam!
Nice.
Played Chrono Trigger, the SNES game for the first time ever last year. And really, really loved it. I thought it was absolutely excellent. There's loads of kind of, classic SNES and sort of those era type games, which are obviously held up. And, these games are legendary. These games are amazing. And you go back and you play them in the modern day, and you think to yourself, well, does this really hold up anymore? It was good back for the time back then, because what it did back then was revolutionary. But nowadays, maybe when you're a kid, you can overlook some of the jank or some of the awful decisions that a legendary game might make, which, you maybe don't have the patience for when you get older and you play things in the modern day with, how modern design works and stuff like that.
Sure.
But Chrono Trigger is none of those things. It feels like, someone could have made this game this year, like an indie dev that does pixel art. Might have made the game this year. It is so polished. I played the PS version, the anime cutscenes, which I really liked. I really thought they were good, especially because these anime cutscenes, they don't have voice actor or anything. So it's just little bits of flavour to kind of drop in there every now and again. It's just cool to see these pixelized characters, but fleshed out in animation.
Yeah. Frog cuts a fucking rock in half and shit.
Yeah, it was really good. Loved it. I thought I was gonna run into loads of places where I'm have to be in the late 90s mindset where I might have to grind this one, or might have to, the game might ask me to do something ridiculous to get past this point or something. It might be unnecessarily hard, or something like that. But no, none of those things. I basically loved it from start to finish. I would urge anyone to play it. It feels incredibly polished. Feels very cinematic, and not in the sense that, you know, the word cinematic is used sort of these days. It feels very like, has a great scale to it. Everything feels massive. The world feels massive, even though it's like a SNES game. Just play it. I thought it was excellent. It felt very like, sort of in the way, this is a weird comparison, but sort of in the way like, not like when I say epic, no scope, it's not like that. But in the same way, something like Metal Gear Solid feels epic, because you've got like these over the top, you know, sort of action scenes going on. The story's all kind of convoluted and save the world, etc. And then you've got the music that comes over the top, and, you know, the Metal Gear Solid theme and all the characters and stuff. Chrono Trigger reminded me of that, actually, weirdly, in a way. Massive world, intricate story with time travel and stuff, loads of characters, some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game.
Yeah.
It's so good. Really enjoyed it. So that was kind of the first thing I played this year.
Square in their prime. Would you say that Chrono Trigger is timeless?
Hey.
Do you know what? I haven't even finished it. I played halfway through it. I got one of the like early endings accidentally. I was absolutely loved the game. It was on my Wii.
Was like halfway through the game.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I was playing because I was playing it on my Wii. You know, you get it on the virtual console.
Yeah.
And then for some reason it was like I had another game I picked up and I never went back to it. I really want to go back to it because I loved every second of it. The music's amazing and it's drawn by Akira Toriyama.
Yes.
How did this game get made? And how does it still feel better than most RPGs today?
Yes.
I will say, as a FF6 fanboy, I do prefer FF6 because I like a lot of the characters. There's a bit more character to the characters. Well, there's just more characters, essentially. But yeah, Chrono Trigger is fucking great, and I love all of the branching stuff, especially like the trial at the end, which like makes you rethink the things that you just do. Like if you pick up a locket before talking to Mum and shit like that. I fucking love that shit.
Yeah, excellent.
Anyway,
alright, Chrono Trigger, that's good. Where should we go? I played Shadow of the Colossus, the remake on PS4. Again, I spent a lot this year playing games that I feel like I needed to play, you know, like Legendary, you have to play this, which I just had missed in the past. So Chrono Trigger was the first. Played that Shadow of the Colossus remake. Did a little bit of research first. You can go a bit. Sometimes these remakes aren't the ones to play, depending on how the remake is handled. But this one is. I did a lot of research first, and everyone was like, definitely just play the remake. I really loved it. Again, I'm a big sucker for any game that gives me either minimal HUD or no HUD. I feel like, just a bit of a tangent, but having HUD elements overbearing over the screen really is a crutch that game designers use too often in modern games. Shadow of the Colossus is like, fuck that, no HUD. Occasionally you get like the health bar when you're actually in battle, but that's only, you know, however many Colossi there are in the game. Most of the game is no HUD, you see the full visuals, going around on your horse. Yeah, excellent, loved it. Big fan of the fact that they didn't fill the world with collectibles and side quests and NPCs to talk to.
There are collectibles.
There are, okay. There are the lizards, but it's not like they're marked on a mini-map. They're not marked on a mini-map and you don't set waypoints and follow a line. If Shadow of Colossus was made in the present day by someone other than, let's say Ubisoft make it or something ridiculous like that, it would be, the map would be full of side quests and dumb collectibles, and you'd set watchtowers. You'd set waypoints and then follow the line on a mini map and stuff. This game's like, fuck that. You hold up that sword, you follow the light, and then you run to the next Colossi and then fight it. There are, occasions where you hold up the light on your sword, and it's
mountain in the way,
and it's like pointing at a wall or something. You're like, fuck, where do I go? And I was like,
I fucking love that.
Yeah.
It's so good. And instead of just like a line that tells you exactly where to go, and you have to think about what you have to do. It's just, I can't believe no games have done anything similar to this since.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I was going to say. Basically, like it makes it better because I'm not just following a line. I might not always know where to go, but it just means that you have to kind of sort of figure it out, and it makes you see more of this world than you probably would see, because you see, obviously, if you know where to go and you absolutely know point A to point B, I'm sure you can just go straight to there and you miss out on half the world. Half the world is pointless. You probably don't need to even go there, but you see half the things you do because you're trying to find where to go, and it's worth it because the visuals and the landscape and the world they've built here is the reward for the exploration almost. I feel similarly to the way Breath of the Wild does it actually on this, that your reward for exploring isn't necessarily, let's say in Assassin's Creed, a feather or a watchtower or a side mission or a treasure chest or something. Your reward for exploring is, oh, look at this vista you just explored. Look at this vista you just found tucked away.
Interesting thing.
Look at this waterfall. Look at this. Now you've gone up to this hill. You didn't need to go here. You can just run past it. But because you went up to this hill, now you get a view over this mountain range and you can see the sun beam down and stuff. And that is the reward for the exploration, rather than something physical, like a collectible or something. Even though there are those lizards, which are very minor. But yeah, really loved it. Thought it was excellent. Thought the variety in the Colossi is really good, and what stops it from becoming stale. There's one of them which is like a really small Colossi, and he like rams you and stuff, and you have to use like flame and with a stick to take him off the edge of the ledge and stuff. There's another one which is another smaller Colossi which knocks down pillars which you have to jump between to get to the end. When I looked online on this after I finished it, a lot of people don't like those ones.
I've heard people say.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like these kind of smaller ones, smaller puzzles, and just like the big guys and stuff. But actually, I thought they were really good. I thought it was a fresh breath of fresh air after fighting, 4 massive titans in a row. That you face a little thing which you have to then beat by jumping across pillars or making it smash into torches or fall off ledges or whatever. So,
what's your favourite Colossus?
I can't remember the name. It's the one that is flying in the sand.
Yes, Phalanx.
Maybe this is everyone's, but yeah, this probably sums up. This probably sums out how good it is. You're just like in the middle of the desert. It looks great. This massive open desert. You're fucking running around on your horse after this monster. You fire arrows into its like sacks on its body while it's flying. The arrows hit it, and then that causes it to dip down and like face plant the sand. This is all like in motion. None of it stops. It doesn't like you hit a weak spot, so then the enemy falls down in front of you and waits for you to hit the weak spot. You hit the sacks, and then it's still flying or trying to fly, but it can't because you popped its sacks, and now its face is smashing against the sand. So then you go over there on your horse, leap off the horse, jump onto its wing, climb up its wing onto its back. By the time you've done that, the sacks have filled back up, which means it's flown back into the air. So now you're on it in the air, and you have to stab it like in its like gills or whatever from behind while still in the air. Fantastic, awesome! What an epic boss!
I could talk for hours about this game. It's one of my favourite games. I'm literally getting like goosebumps just like thinking about all the Colossi. Like the fucking bird one that flies down at you, you jump up, grab onto its wing and shit.
I think that was
so
like obviously the first Colossi stuff you're just like wow at the scale of it. But I think that bird one was the first time I was like, holy shit. Because I didn't know what to do for ages. Like, the arena is like water with just a few platforms, and there's a bird that flies around above it. But it's far too far away for you to, like, kind of, attack with your sword. And you can't climb anything to jump onto it. So I was like, I don't know what to do here. So I just stood on the platform and just fired an arrow at it just to see what it would do. And the arrow hit it, and it did one more circle of its, like, loop. And because I hit it with the arrow, it then, like, soars down at you. There's no cutscene, there's no stoppage or anything. It just soars fully down at you, head on, and then you jump at the right time and grab its wing, and then if you grab it, it flies back up into the air. Just immense. And again, it's made all better because none of it feels very gamified. There's no when the bird soars down. There's no quick time event. There's no press A to latch onto the bird or anything. When the bird soars down, you can see that it has like fur on a part of its wing, and you know that from the previous Colossi that you can grip that fur. So you instinctively jump and hit grip, and then you'll do it and you'll hold on. There's no prompt. There's no obvious place where the bird falls down and quite clearly. There's a glowing weak spot which you're supposed to hit, or a glowing bit which you're supposed to grab onto. It feels very dynamic that way, and that's what makes it. Yeah, Shadow Colossus, amazing.
Masterpiece. Top 5.
I really, really love that game too. I really love when they combine a theme with gameplay so seamlessly. and bare minimal cutscenes or any dialogue. It's wonderful. It's a must play for pretty much anyone who enjoys art.
Yes. We've established Chrono Trigger and Shadow of the Colossus are good games. What new ground can we break on this podcast?
Should I talk? I'll talk about Katana Zero. Katana Zero. So this came out last year, but checking on Wikipedia, it came out this year on Xbox One or something.
Well, there you go.
So
this game from this year.
This game sort of came from this year. I played it because I had some time over Christmas. I hadn't played my Switch in ages. I was collecting dust really because Nintendo doesn't put any games on it. But I had some time over Christmas and I wanted to play a short game just so I could sort of finish it when I'm done. So I looked up some reviews and stuff. Found Katana Zero. It's a side-scrolling sort of beat 'em up game, but it's more about clearing out rooms of enemies quickly rather than like Streets of Rage where you move left to right and mash buttons. So it's more about, you die in one hit, so you do it over and over and over again until you can clear a room flawlessly and you know where all the enemies are. And so you first start off in a room, you open the door, you get shot by the enemy. Okay, second time you open the door, to roll past the enemy, you then slash him, you then throw a thing which causes another enemy to die. You pick up an item, go through another door, roll quickly, slash him, bounce that item off the wall to then kill the other enemy on the other side of the room before he shoots you.
Hotline Miami. Basically.
Yeah, sort of like that, but sort of 2D, as in side-scrolling, and not like top down like Hotline Miami or whatever.
I think I continually confuse it with The Messenger.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yes.
Anyway,
yeah, me
so
too.
I thought the gameplay loop itself, just as I've described it, sounds pretty fun, and it was. What actually I think makes this is that there's loads of polish to this. There's a storyline to do with like drugs. Like your character is like addicted to a drug, which gives her the power to like do slow down time and to do all these cool moves and stuff. But because she's an addict, like she loses memory and stuff, and you like replay bits. So you're not sure what parts are like actual canon and what parts you're hallucinating and stuff like that. And there's a kind of a big story about how who's supplying her this drugs, and she was part of an experiment and all this. And it's actually really good. And the last thing I'll say on this is that it has one of the best dialogue mechanics I've ever seen in a video game. So what happens is when you go into cutscenes and stuff, you do the normal thing in video games where an NPC says something and then you select a dialogue option, how you want to respond. And depending on how you respond, depends on how the NPC replies. But as the NPC is saying their lines, you have an option to like interrupt them with a response first before they can finish their line, and this changes some of the way the dialogue works, and it allows you to do different things. So when the NPC starts talking, you just have one dialogue option and it's in red, and like there's a countdown timer, and if you hit that option, then it interrupts the NPC and the dialogue goes in a different direction. If you wait, then it goes past the timer, so the timer clocks all the way down and you miss out. So you can no longer use that dialogue option, but you can now respond in different ways because you've let the NPC talk and you now have more information because they've just revealed something to you which you didn't have before. So then you can now have a dialogue option that way. And it's really interesting. I've never seen anything like this, really. And
yeah, that is cool. Like we spoke about it briefly when we talked about Outer Worlds last year. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's a good story, but it's just the same dialogue option as any other game.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate stuff like that. Like interrupting stuff like that's just something. That's how conversations work in real life. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like if you can like something else, you could like move around a room, and if you're looking at something, they'll be like, "Oh, you saw my pink glistening dildo, did you? Would you like to hear about that?" And unlock dialogue trees like that. Like I really appreciate that. It's definitely on my radar, that game. So
yeah.
Maybe.
You can sort of like half sort of role play with it, like. I found myself at points like in the story, because I think the story's really good actually. So I find my points at the story where I was like, my character something's just happened. I would not wait for this NPC to spout exposition. So I will just interrupt, and like obviously all the interrupt ones are normally something like fuck off, or just tell me where to go next, or tell me what the plan is, or what do you mean, or something. So you can sort of half role play if you're impatient, and you're like, my character wouldn't wait for this bad guy to then give me his monologue about destroying the world. I just want to tell him to fuck off. Then you have that fuck off option first. And literally, some of the options are literally say fuck off, So you could hit that, and then he's like, "What, nani? Don't tell me to fuck off," and then the fight start. or because you've gone early, like a new piece of information will come up. Yeah, it's really interesting. Game's very, very polished. Very polished. I would recommend it to anyone really. Katana Zero, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I do want to play it. It's one of those. It's like I think there's another game that Cyber Shadow by the guys who did Shovel Knight also doing, but that looks more like a Ninja Gaiden game. Whereas I think this game is more like a. I've seen the trailers. It's like hard to describe, like sort of stealth, but also like get everything in one shot, redo it, Super Meat Boy style as well.
Yeah, sort of. There's a lot of like jumping and stuff, and jumping off walls and things. But it's more like it's Super Meat Boy style in the sense that you die in one hit, and when you die, you immediately respawn. So it's like you go again
to get the perfect run.
You keep going. It's trial and error until you basically get the perfect run, and then you pull up everything in one seamless motion. And again, it does the Super Meat Boy thing where after you finish the stage, it gives you a replay of your perfect run again. But this time, so like in the game, you can like slow down time and stuff. So you have a few tools, but in the replay, if you slow down time when you did the run, in the replay it doesn't put in the slow down time. So it's as if the enemies are seeing it,
super hot.
Right? So it's super hot actually, but 2D sort of side-scrolling beat 'em up, really good.
Nice. Speaking of a game that is both polished and has dialogue options that allow you to interrupt. Let's talk about something that does neither of those things. I want to talk about Cyberpunk for like 5 seconds because
5
shit
seconds,
game.
please 5 seconds.
Yeah, bad poopy game, bug bad, but also game bad. Very very bad, boring game. That's it.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah. I just because it reminds me, because you have the option to sometimes interrupt people in Cyberpunk, but it like has a very long countdown that basically is just like a dialogue option for. It's just a dialogue option that is on a timer for no reason.
I saw that shit.
Fuck that game. So boring.
Speaking of bad game, but not necessarily bad, but bad. Let's talk about the 2 games that I forgot, and that pretty much sums them up.
Oh yeah.
First, chronologically speaking, World of Horror came out.
Oh shit, yeah.
I have no idea what this is.
It's made by one guy in Paint, and it's a Junji Ito sort of 1980s adventure game thing with very bad combat. Yes. And it's randomized. And so back in the day, I was an RPG Maker boy. I made RPG games in RPG Maker. And there's a tendency when you're inexperienced and doing like a battle system is that you're making things so specific. You need to follow a specific set of rules. And to you, it's so fucking obvious what you should do. It's like, oh, obviously do this, but you need to communicate that to the player. Because people don't fucking understand this shitty UI you've made. And I really respect the game that this one guy made this.
Yeah.
But it's just not good.
When I watched the trailer to start with, because it's obviously like the Microsoft Paint, but like it looks like a classic Japanese Junji Ito horror. Like everything's a bit grungy and anime style, but it has elements of like Elder Gods and Cthulhu. And so from a general visual perspective, I thought, wow, this is going to be an interesting like weird RPG detective game. And then it was only when I bought the game and started playing it, I realised I didn't even understand until 2 runs in that it was a roguelike. It was so poorly explained. I was like, oh my god, okay, so you have like randomly generated quests that are sort of like stories that have multiple endings, which you can do multiple runs of.
That really works against it, I think, the roguelike stuff.
It really does, because it means nothing's personal and nothing's tailor-made. Whereas it could have been very good. It could have been very, very good because the visuals and the setting and the like atmosphere are excellent. The enemy designs and everything excellent, but the combat is so poor, so random and unintuitive, and because everything is, as I say, meant to be done on multiple runs, you don't have any personal attachment or interest in the stories. It's just like, hey, these are sort of like what Junji Ito's stories would be like. And then there's some sort of Elder Gods there as well.
Yeah, it doesn't feel cohesive at all. It's like the combat. Here's a cool enemy that I drew in Microsoft Paint. It's like, oh, that is cool. And then there's like Chibi walking around, and like random things happen. It's like, oh, I took psychological damage. Yeah. Here's another cool monster. Oh, I died because I didn't roll a hit.
Yeah.
It's just very basic. I really do respect it. One guy doing it in paint, as you keep saying, but it's like better luck next time.
If he made a sequel, which was a linear detective story with a decent RPG system, I would consider that that could be an incredible game.
Because it's sort of like Darkest Dungeon in the walking around and then really a battle happens, but it's just way worse in every way.
It's so much time spent on atmosphere and design and not on the mechanics, which is a shame. Shame. It's a lot of potential. I want this guy to make another game because there's something there. There's something there, but he needs someone else to help him, I think.
And the other game that I forgot in my list is Spiritfarer.
Interesting.
You played it more than me, so you're probably better off talking about this.
Okay. I played Spiritfarer. I really, really liked it. I've forgotten about it a bit more now that I've been away and I've played Hades. But it came out on Switch. I saw the trailer a couple of years back and it was pleasant, like you hug everyone, sort of Animal Crossing-y vibe, but also some sort of crafting elements. And it's
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, it's basically like a 2D shipped Stardew Valley, but not there's not anything that's necessary. It's just more like you do these things and then you sort of advance the story. It feels like a Studio Ghibli film to me. That sense of like true wonder, like, oh, we've come into an electrical storm. This frog guy's gonna play his flute. You're gonna run around, catch lightning in a bottle, and the music swells and it's very beautifully animated. It's really nice.
It is nice.
There's a lot of busy work, and I didn't mind the busy work too much, as I was quite engrossed in this weird little world where you play basically someone who fares spirits to the other world, and you sort of help them solve their problems. But it's not as simple as it seems to me. It's not as simple.
The busy work did feel like busy work for me. And maybe it's because I played it at a very bad time in my life that I did not enjoy it. But like, I got very bored very quickly, and I didn't really care about any of the characters. So I didn't give them enough time to really make an impression, to be honest.
See, I completely understand that, because from an outside perspective, it is just busy work, and then you talk to people, and then you take them to the place. But I had the opposite thing in that I got extremely invested in each of these characters, and then it made the busy work not as much of a chore for me because I was so interested in, like, the thing. Obviously, like, you haven't got much interest in these characters, but they all have their own weird complexities in that, and it's all about how they deal with death. And it may seem like, oh, you get your first friend, is your tutorial person, you hear about their backstory, it wasn't so nice, and why they are a bit eccentric and a bit like they are. You fare them off, and then you have other people. You build them up, and you, like, for example, there are 3 characters I'll say here. You got one who loves Dungeons and Dragons, is a massive, like, super over the top nerd. He speaks everything. He's like, oh, my hunger level meter is low. I need food, sort of thing like that. You've got an uncle who loves food, who's just like happy like uncle of the family, very jolly. And then you've got someone who is completely in love, like an older woman who's in love with a guy who's cheated on her multiple times, and the guy who's cheated on her. And, you know, those are relatively simple characters, but once you've explored their stories, it's not like everything's happy. This is not a happy game, and even though it looks like it, this is an extremely depressing game. As it's when you've finally solved all these people's quests, you've given them food like how they want. Like, some of them don't. So, for example, you usually have a big ceremony where you give them a big hug and say, okay, it's ready for me to go off. In this, you have the old woman's story. She's basically found out that her husband, who she's forgiven, hasn't changed and is still cheating. And she is absolutely distraught and miserable and decides to leave. And so she gets sent off to the other, she dies essentially, or gets moved on, and she has nothing resolved. She's sad and miserable, and she says this in her final dialogues, and she's just like, even your hugs don't really make me as much happy because I feel like I've wasted a lot of my life. And then you have the story with the person who's cheated, and his side is he was in a war. He thought he was going to die the whole time, and so he's living his life to the fullest. He doesn't care if he hurts people. He knows how fruitless, life is. He's just going to cheat and be who he is, although he wishes he could do it in a way that doesn't hurt people. Then you go back to the uncle, and that he's so happy and he loves you so much, whereas everybody else has this big ceremony where they say goodbye and they hug and everybody's sad. He cannot do that. He doesn't have the emotional maturity to do that, and so he just leaves without telling you. Just goes off on his own and goes. And spoiler. It's so hard. It is a spoiler, but I broke into tears when I went to his room to go say goodbye to him, and he just wasn't there. He just left a note saying "Thank you, I love you," and his flowers were there. I broke into tears at that point. And
I like a sad game. This sounds good. There's more to this than there is. There's loads of small characters, and then you got the Dungeons and Dragons guy who you help with all of his quests and everything to complete his final campaign. And you think, okay, he's done his campaign, he's ready, and he's not. He isn't mature enough to accept death. He needs more. He cannot accept finality, and so he, instead of going to the final gate and leaving, he then just says, "I'm going to make a new campaign." He's putting everything off constantly. He cannot accept death, and you don't say goodbye to him in any way. He just stays there for the rest of the game. It's really, I love those things. Although I can understand, if you can't get invested in these characters, it is just a standard, boring Stardew Valley game.
But it is theoretically interesting, and you've pointed out very well why it is theoretically interesting.
Yes.
I just don't think I played it enough. Something wasn't clicking. I might go back to it. I'm not sure.
I got wrapped up in the atmosphere, the music, the world, the animation, everything. Even though it is a lot of busy work, I got wrapped up in it.
I didn't even see anyone off. That's how little I got into.
Oh really? Oh man, I cried 5 times in this game.
Because all I got was I have to do cooking, I'm gonna jump around.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. And then she's like, oh, my dad was mean to me. It's I don't fucking care. I'm gonna play Hades.
Sure, that's fair enough. It's not it doesn't follow a set. You'd expect it to be, there's the gorilla character, and then there's the whatever character. Oh, we're just gonna pick up. It doesn't do that. There are things that happen and characters that appear that you wouldn't expect to be part of the ship, but then they do. It's very. I like it. It's good. It's good. I really liked it.
Fair. I'll revisit it. I probably will.
If you can't get invested in the characters, you're not going to enjoy the game as much. But I think it's perfectly fine in terms of gameplay. Perfectly satisfactory. Yeah. I like the game.
So speaking of Hades, let's talk about Slay the Spire. Obviously, Jaz and I played Slay the Spire when it came out. Jaz is, of course, fucking degenerate Slay the Spire player. Oh, I'm Ascension fucking 20. Oh, look at me.
Baby.
But Matt and I played it earlier this year, and I managed to beat the heart with every character. I didn't go full in Ascension, but it's a good game.
I really loved it. I don't really play these type of things. When it first was sold to me by Jaz and others as, it's a deck builder. I was like, I need to sleep. I'm gonna fall asleep. Nothing sounds more boring than a digital deck builder game. But it's excellent. I really loved it. It's just really polished, really quick. Nothing feels off. I think it's very easy to understand and pick up. I think actually what helps with this sort of thing is that anytime you hover your mouse over, and I don't know how standard this is, but regardless, anytime you hover your mouse over anything in the game, like damage or what an effect does, it brings up a little pop-up window which then tells you what this is. So you don't have to remember sort of all these systems and things going on. Of course, as you play the game, you will learn these all and remember them all. There's nothing I hate more kind of in these type of games where you start and you just don't know what you're doing, and then you lose and you don't really know why. There was a system going on that happened that you didn't know about and now you've lost. Or the opposite, you play a card and it has an effect or something happens that you didn't expect it to do. Oh, I thought it was going to happen this turn when I played, but actually it the effect comes in after you end a turn, or only if you make certain parameters or something which I might have missed or whatever. Slay the Spire gets rid of this problem just by it being so clear and polished. You hover over stuff, it tells you exactly what's going to happen, and because of that barrier of entry is much easier for me, and I got into it really quickly and started really loving it and finding different combinations of cards and picking up and doing the route and stuff. I really love this game, way more than I thought I would.
It's so tightly designed, and as you said, it's like so concise, and you're very immediately making like informed decisions just because you're experiencing it, and it's immediately apparent like what is going on. More indie developers should rip it off. Am I right, Jaz?
I mean, I wouldn't encourage such a thing, but yeah.
would never encourage that.
Wonderful roguelike.
Wonderful roguelike. Speaking of cards, I want to smack this out of the way because I hate it.
Yeah, let's rattle through some.
So I was a big Hearthstone boy back in the day.
Blimey.
Thankfully, not anymore.
Jesus.
My wallet is in check.
See, I did play that game, and just sorry to interrupt. I did play Hearthstone for a bit. I wanted to get into it, but I couldn't. And that's why when someone was like, "Oh, play Slay the Spire," I was like, "I fucking hate Hearthstone. Why would I want to play some indie Hearthstone?" What Slay the Spire does that Hearthstone doesn't, in my opinion, is that it's much more concise and much clearer of what your card is actually going to do. You have less to learn. Sorry, anyway, continue.
And there's less of a meta, and it's like against the CPU, who you can see their actions, and you're planning around that rather than, oh, this guy has a fucking thing that takes a third of my health off fucking mages.
Absolutely.
But aside from that, that's why I played Slay the Spire. So for the exact opposite reason you didn't. So I was like, Slay the Spire was fun, but I'm not going to play anymore. I liked Hearthstone, but it's been like 5 years. I can't possibly get back into that. So I tried Riot Games, Legends of Runeterra.
Nice.
And I was like, it's pretty good. It's cool. It's like Pokemon. You got a bench and then you bring them on. I was like, this is fun. My friend who isn't in this chat you should play this. And he's like, I'll check it out. I liked Hearthstone and I like Slay the Spire, and it's ruined his life. Uninstalled this game. Never play it.
Yeah.
Are we saying...
I like these systems in theory. It's just like a lot of pay to win, lots of constant
It's not pay
grinding.
to win. That is something I will say in its defense. It is not pay to win. You
I'm
get given
about
so
Hearthstone more than anything. That's why I was put off from that game.
This like you get fucking more cards than Slay the Spire, and you can get everything very easily just by playing it. And it's not like you can say that about Hearthstone, right? You theoretically get cards, but this one no. You get fucking thrown cards.
Sure.
And it's fun, but like then I realised, I don't really actually want to get into this.
So we do like this.
Do like it, but I don't recommend it unless you like card games and you're willing to spend a lot of time on it. And just to show you the degeneracy that you fucking leaked down to, my friend was trying to convince me to give him my Riot account so that he can like throw games to get free XP. And that's the main reason I hate it.
Yeah, let's not.
Like, just if you have an addictive personality, do not play it. If you can get into these things and not worry about the meta, I worry about the meta all the time, so I can't really.
Yeah, actually, just a quick tangent, because we're talking about Riot. So I actually felt this with League of Legends back in the day. So I played League of Legends for a bit. I'm sure we all did. Back in the day.
Not me.
But no, fine. I played League of Legends back in the day when it was the hot new thing and really enjoyed it. The issue is, or at least I found it, and this is obviously by design, and the card game that they've also released that I was talking about seems similar, is that if you don't commit your life to this, you will fall behind. So as much as I love League of Legends, at a point it's like I can't keep up with the meta and everything changing. You take a 2-month break from it, and it's like, there's a new champion, I've got to learn that matchup, and they did a patch and this item's not different, and we don't build this way anymore. So I can see that. It's definitely one of those games which sort of demands you play this constantly, and it is your main sort of outlet of entertainment. So I can see why you might want to nip it in the bud before it becomes that.
Yeah, glad I did.
That's fair. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. I saw this on Otis's Steam library. Looked interesting, like an Earthbound clone.
I own that game?
Yes. No, you don't own it, but I own it. It was on your wish list.
Right.
It's very bare bones RPG Maker. Like the levels and everything are slapped together is probably the best way to put it. But it's told from a perspective of a 5-year-old boy who has good imagination, and the person who's created this game is very good at contextualizing the mechanics in terms of it's all to do with a child's imagination, and the world is clearly something that a child's imagined, as in like there's a level where you get taken by a UFO, and it's a elderly person called Grandma is the big computer who's losing their memory, and so it's clearly like a child's interpretation of an elderly relative with dementia or something. And there's like or one of the areas is like a bee's nest, and then they're all turning to like zombies and stuff, and it's clearly because you can clearly tell it's because something bad has happened and they've witnessed like death in nature or something, and this is a child's brain contextualizing it all. So
it's more blatant Earthbound is what you're saying.
It's so blatant Earthbound. And the thing is, I do want to keep playing it because there's clear effort put into this game. It's just the mechanics and the it's the mechanics in the world level design and stuff which are really quite subpar, if I'm honest. They're very basic at best. I want to see how else it shows these interesting ideas through the lens of a child. And it's obviously they haven't made it clear this is what it is, but it's so blatantly obvious that's what it is. I want to give it more time, but it's so far it's like a for me.
It's going to have to be compared to Lisa, and
Lisa's a masterpiece.
Yeah, so don't worry, Odyssey will save us.
Hopefully,
us
God,
Earthbound fans who are living in turmoil.
Just started shaking at the word Odyssey again.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, yes.
Right,
I'm sorry.
calm down
Mother
again.
for Oddity.
Let me rattle off the fighting games, all right? Under Night in Birth,
now.
EXE Late Clear, CL-R. It's my favourite fighting game. Bad netcode, great systems. I love Lynn. Skullgirls. Shame about Mike Z being racist, but it's a good game. Punch Planet it's literally fucking Street Fighter 4 again, but it has rollback netcode and 5 people play it. And it's a shame that if people played it, I'd play it more, and everyone's fucking saying that, but it's like, come on. Come on.
Yeah.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Heritage for the Future. I was expecting a fucking janky-ass 90s game, but it's made by Capcom on the CPS3 board by the Third Strike people, and there's like, this shit is actually really fucking good.
Nani?
It has like some of my favourite mechanics in a fighting game. Like my favourite one is block-only frame on Wake Up, where it's like, you can't do a reversal here because you get hit, but you can block. It's like, I like that. More games should do that. And obviously, we like JoJo. I even made Jaz play it.
Yeah,
he liked it.
I actually enjoyed it. I would play more of it if I was a fighting game person.
And it's beautiful.
It is fun.
Like CPS3.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And you get to play as like 5 versions of Dio and like 3 versions of fucking Caravan Sarai.
2 Dios. No, it's like there's 3 different Anubis characters. But anyway,
very
we've
bizarre,
done the JoJo podcast.
Very bizarre.
We've done the JoJo podcast. I mean Jotaro, by the way. Nani.
I mean Dio.
Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R. They added rollback, baby. It's a good fucking game. Now, Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, Fight for the Future.
Oh, yeah.
Before, because I'm assuming you've rattled off pretty much all of your fighting games there. Before you do that, can you explain to me why a lot of these fighting games have really, really strange names? Like, there must be some reason that these...
Japan.
Well,
no,
yeah,
but surely there's something else.
It's because, right, so A, Japan, but also B, they release a game with a name, Under Night in Birth or whatever, or Guilty Gear XX. So they release a game. The meta then evolves, and they then go and release a big patch or an upgrade on the game, which maybe adds new characters or changes some things in the game, or there's a big balance update which changes a bunch of stuff. And they have to mark this as a sort of with a new name, or they feel like they need to mark it with a new name
because it's arcades.
Yeah,
so they actually had to like mark it. This is new. Look at this.
This is new.
It's all Capcom's fault, basically.
So Guilty Gear. We have Guilty Gear XX or whatever, but then we did a big update, and now we're going to call this one. It's Guilty Gear XX, which is the accent core version. We've added characters or changed the fucking meta or whatever. We balanced some stuff, etc. Then that goes along for maybe a year or two. I don't know the exact timeline of Guilty Gear. That goes along for a little bit, and then they do another update, another balance update. Maybe they add more characters. They do another season, and then because it's the new arcade machine dropping into arcades in Japan, they need to market it again. So now this one is Guilty Gear XX Accent Core plus R.
Okay, and, I understand that. Like, especially Street Fighters, like Super Street Fighter.
But why EXE late?
Ultra Street
but
Fighter.
why EXE late square bracket CL dash R square
yes.
bracket?
Okay, so I can't answer
fucking
that.
anime.
Can't answer that.
Yeah.
The way that we have fucking Super Dry and they just put fucking kanji in it that means nothing.
Yeah.
They love that shit. They love English.
Yeah.
They don't know what it says, but it looks cool.
Yeah, I know. Like Bleach, the anime was just named Bleach because he picked a word out of an English dictionary. But like, I get it. But like, at some point they must realise this turns off people who may be interested in it. Because even not casual people, but people who have an interest, like want to pick up a fighting game. They must look at a game called
if you're petty enough to
EXE late hyper brackets fucking CL-R.
I think it's a meme, bro.
I have no idea what this is. I'm not.
It's a meme, bro. It's a meme. Calm down. Anyway, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Who would have guessed Third Strike is a good game?
Yeah.
And I want to say I've been trying to get Matt to play fighting games for fucking years. And then all of a sudden, he's the one asking me to play Third Strike, and it's a breath of fresh air. It's a fucking good game.
So I played Street Fighter 4 quite a lot, and then I played 5. I played a bit of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 when it came out. I played a bit of Dragon Fighter Z when it came out. And played Street Fighter 5 when that came out. But Street Fighter 5 was a total mess, unfinished mess. I think it's good now, but basically I kind of hopped off fighting games at that point. Like I think a lot of people did actually, especially after the popularity of the final, Ultra Street Fighter 4. But felt the itch again to play some fighting games, and thought I'd play Third Strike. Now, Third Strike in the fighting game community is sort of held up as this perfect, unbelievable fighter that we should have gone away from, and it's clearly the best one. And that this is the best Street Fighter. This is for the hardcore. There's a parry mechanic. There's crazy shit going on, and because it's kind of held up so highly, it's sort of, when people spoke about it made me roll my eyes a bit. I was like, well, it can't be that good. Like maybe it's just nostalgia hitting in. Maybe you just hate Street Fighter 5 or whatever.
And people are legit scared of it. I think.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people hold it up without having played it, just because like Daigo parry and all that. Shit.
Yeah. So and I felt the same way actually. I think Street Fighter 4 and 5, Capcom did a lot to sort of make things easier for players in terms of inputs, in terms of commands and things they have to do to make it sort of less, to make the barrier of entry lower. So I was put off for Third Strike for exactly that reason. I was like, I don't want to have to deal with learning how to parry in this complicated, intense, hardcore fighting game. Like, do I have time for this? And then I played it, and it couldn't be more wrong. This game is absolutely nothing like the way it's held up in terms of how complex it is and how difficult it is to get into. However, it is the way it is when it's held up as being maybe the best fighting game. I love this fighting game. It is unbelievable how much enjoyment I've had with this. I love the art style. It's pixelated, obviously, so it's pixels. So it's not like Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5 style. But obviously, because when it came out, it was late 90s, early 2000s.
So it's like
99, I think.
Yeah. So
it's like those type. It's like pixel art, like to almost to its finest degree. It looks excellent. And the barrier of entry is nowhere near as high as everybody sort of claims it to be. Me noticed from playing loads of it, had a really good time with it. So yeah,
it's great.
As a casual fighting, I like Street Fighter. It was my first game I ever played as a child. When I was 2 years old, I played Super Street Fighter 2. I really liked the series. I liked 4. I'm not a good fighting game player. I'm pretty bad at them, but I like playing them casually. and memeing on Otis, even though he's definitely, you and Matt are definitely better than me at fighting games, and I don't think that's even a question. Well, and like, I never played 5 because I heard it was dreadful. I was like, oh, okay, can't be asked. But even then, I just nebulously knew that Third Strike is held up as this like paragon of ultimate excellence. This like untouchable, beautiful game, has the best characters, has the best like mechanics and everything. And I don't know why I've always known this, and yet I've never played it. I didn't know it came out. I didn't know Street Fighter 3 came out until someone just went, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is when Street Fighter 4 was announced." I was like, "Where the fuck's the third one?"
Yeah.
And I had to research it, and it was like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, I've played some Third Strike, and it did, I could probably see this being the best. Street Fighter 2 is the nostalgia one that got everything started, and Street Fighter 4 was more, more for the main audience, I suppose.
It was a conscious return to the Street Fighter 2 style. Obviously, It's very different, but it's more like that.
To more encourage newer players and stuff. But 3 feels like, okay, if you want to fucking play a fighting game and be happy with how it works, Third Strike is where you go from, because it has
and it's the best if you find someone else who hasn't played it. And like, if you play fighting games and you're too scared to try it, which is fair enough, because like, people have played this non-stop for the last 20 years. People are fucking good at this game. But if you find someone else at your level, it's fucking brilliant. Like, you can imagine. We've both got fucking, we're like doing mid-air parries and shit. Like, parry, oh, you parried the thing that I did after the parry. We're at that level already. It's only been like a couple of months. We haven't played it that much.
Yeah.
It's just really fun.
I mean, what I said at the start about people being scared of this game is 100% true. I think I was scared of it first. What I will say to this is that, obviously, everyone knows there's a parry mechanic. You press forward and you parry the move that's being hit, and there's a tight window in which you have to do it, and it negates the move, and then you can do something. Now, people go on about this like the window is so unbelievably tight, and you need to sit there for hours and hours and practice exact timings and things. But it's not like that at all. The first time I ever parried, Otis threw a fireball, and I just pressed forward on my stick when I felt like it was the right time to parry the fireball. I've never sat in training mode and learnt timing. I just tapped forward when it felt like the fireball was going to hit me, and I parried it successfully. And like, it's just so good.
I mean, even I learned how to parry when I was first playing.
Yeah, Jaz is weirdly good at parrying in games for some reason. Yeah. He was just parrying my fireballs.
The best thing about all fighting games, in my opinion, and why I like them, is knowing what your opponent's going to do and then punishing them because you've called it, right? You've made the read.
Being rewarded for knowing what they're going to do. And this is the fucking epitome of
absolutely.
that.
So this does happen in other fighting games. In let's say Street Fighter 4, I know this person's going to jump, so I'm not going to throw this fireball. I'm going to wait for him to jump and then shuriken him out the air. Right? For me, that's satisfying as fuck. So there is that in other fighting games. But in Third Strike, with the parry system, it's just taken to the next level. It's like, I know this is going to do this. I'm just going to parry, and then the parry works, and then I do my combo instead. And it's just like the reward given because I knew what he was going to do. The feeling is just unbelievable. And then obviously there's the reverse when you fucking parry and then you didn't do the thing I was going to do. And it's like, oh, nani! And then I get fucked up because I got the read wrong. But yeah, it's excellent.
It's skill-based chess, as basically,
Yes, exactly.
I wish I had more interest in, or more longevity with fighting games, because I do love that general aspect of it. It's just I'm just not very good at them. I'm not very good at stealth games. I'm not very good at shooters.
Not with that attitude.
Not with that, exactly. Okay.
All right, so the other 2 games I want to speak about before we get to Hades is I played them back to back. They're both made by the same guy. Pony Island and then The Hex. So 2 games made by the same guy. Pony Island came out first and then The Hex came out later. I don't think either of them came out recently, to be honest.
For everyone's knowledge, I have played Pony Island and I've meant to buy The Hex, but I constantly forget to buy The Hex and play it.
So Pony Island is effectively it's really hard to describe these games.
Yeah.
Right. Without immediately rolling your eyes, these are meta games, right?
Yeah.
That ask you to do things which, if you like games that are meta, that comment on themselves, comment on the way games are played, and try and fuck with the player, then you'll love these games. Now, I know that, I think especially in recent times, there's sort of been a kind of eye-rolling like thing. Oh, it's meta, it must be good.
Because of Undertale.
Or it's meta, so I don't want to play it because I kind of know what I'm getting into. But I'm a sucker for these type of games. I really love both of them. Pony Island is a game about you're a pony that it automatically side scrolls left to right, and then you jump over obstacles.
You're not a pony, just you're someone in a computer.
You're someone playing a computer game.
You're someone playing a computer game.
A pixelated pony, and you scroll left to right automatically, and you shoot things and jump. But then obviously, as it goes on, the computer that you're playing on is like inhabited by like a demon, or if not the devil himself, and it tries
like
and
a corrupted AI, quote unquote, the devil,
and he tries and fucks with your game, and you have to do stuff like closing the file down and rearrange. And this is all in game, obviously. I don't mean on your PC, but in game, you have to like close the file and open up different files and try and stop him from hacking and stuff. And you speak to him on like a phony like MSN messenger thing, and you go back and forth that way. It's really quite clever. I really enjoyed it, to be honest. And the Hex is similar in the sense that it's meta and like a self-commentary, but it's a game about video game characters that have come from different genres that have now all met in this bar because they're not happy with their lives.
Oh, wow, that sounds cool.
So there's a character who was from a cooking game, but then changed genres to a fighting game. So he's like a fighter. Then you have like a platformer from like the 90s who's bigger than the 90s, but now he's like down on his luck and stuff because no one plays 90s platformers anymore. You've got a character who's like from isometric RPGs like Fallout, so he does that. And you have a character from like top-down RPGs like Final Fantasy and stuff, so she's like a mage and stuff. And you go through each character, and each character you do has their own little genre, and you play in that genre. So you play as the platform character, and you do some platforming, and then you play as the the isometric guy, you do some Fallout gameplay. You play as the fighting guy, you do some 2D fighting gameplay, etc., etc. But what happens is that in these games, like because it's all meta and stuff, they start to fuck with you and fuck with the player what you have to do, and they subvert expectations. And then all these characters sort of come together and start mixing in the genres and start overlapping in different games and stuff. It's really good. I really like the ending. I would recommend both.
Sick. I'll pick it up almost immediately.
It sounds like it's like in the realm of Hypnospace Outlaw, which I really recommend to you.
I also have that on my list to play as well.
Just a quick word on the Hex, actually. A word of warning. It looks like shit. It's pixel art, but it's done in like paint or something. It looks pretty awful. So you have to get past.
Pony Island did as well, but it's like
I think Pony Island looks decent. A bit better, but yeah, it doesn't. It's not an aesthetically pleasing game. But if you can get past that barrier of entry, I do think it is fun.
Hey, look, Among Us and fucking Undertale aren't aesthetically that pleasing, but they're very good mechanically.
Idea games.
Exactly. I will play that Hypnospace Outlaw, and I've also really want to play Fallout 1 and 2 and New Vegas since I watched H1 Guy's video. So
I'm gonna play New Vegas. Don't know about 1 and 2. They're a bit obtuse.
Sure. Okay, I'll talk about a couple of the just to rattle off some of the other ones. Monster Train. I love Slay the Spire, guys. So I played another game that is sort of inspired by it, and it's more like auto chess. Slay the Spire, sort of, not really, but it's very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I replayed it a lot, and it's it hits the same things that Slay the Spire does. It's just not quite as good in my opinion, but it has more DLC, so who knows? It's really good. If you like Slay the Spire, you'll like Monster Train. I played Divinity Original Sin 2. It's a game that doesn't work unless you're playing with other people. Very impressive that it can make a massive Dungeons & Dragons campaign and the feel of a campaign playing as a video game. But it's incredibly boring to play and tedious with one person, as the battles and combat encounters take forever.
Even with not 4 people, it's pretty tedious. Because I played the original a little bit with one other person.
When you have to control other people, it's tedium.
Couldn't get into it too much.
But playing one character with 3 other people, and you role play as the character with your mates, it's a good laugh. And it depends. If you have people who take it slightly more seriously, you'll probably enjoy it more because there's a lot of stuff. There's so many options you can play this game. Like you can just pick up a barrel full of insta-kill stuff, throw it onto one of the end bosses, and just let it off, and it'll kill them instantly, sort of things. There's lots of stuff you can do, but once again, I'd only recommend it if you had a group of people you can consistently play with. Quickly, Resident Evil 3 Remake. I like Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's very good. So I played Resident Evil 3 Remake. It's also very good. More action-based, though. And fucking...
I was disappointed that that Nemesis wasn't Mr. X.
Yeah, I know. But Jill Valentine is a fucking tank and can take infinite damage. It's good. It's good. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as 2 because 2 felt more like a Metroidvania.
Yeah. I feel like everybody's saying that. I think everybody prefers 2 remake and 3 remake.
Yeah, and they're making a 4 remake, so I need to play 4 at some point.
Leaks that apparently we're getting a 4 remake.
4 is great.
4 is amazing.
We spoke about Final Fantasy 7 remake, but I'll just say that game is the Force Awakens of video games in that it could potentially be interesting if the other games are, but they probably won't be, and it'll probably be a dreadful disaster.
Yeah, after that podcast, it never entered my mind ever again unless someone brought it up.
Yeah.
And the fucking... We literally spoke about it for nearly 2 hours, and I'll just recap again. The filler is so bad, it ruins the rest of the game. Anything that could have been potentially interesting is ruined by fucking abysmal filler.
Yeah, but is this filler in... I've not played the original Final Fantasy 7. Is it in the original... No. Is it in the original 7?
Nope.
Listen to our podcast, but essentially they dragged out a 7-hour segment of the original game to 30 hours with AAA nonsense side quests, and it's very blatantly, obviously lazy and shit.
Yeah. The stuff that they carried over from the original and they improved is wonderful, and they've done a really good job, and the combat feels excellent, but they've just a lot of AAA shit and made it tedious. But there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential there, and it's not a remake. It's not a remake.
It's not.
I've got 2 more games to talk about very quickly. So, Legend of Bumbo.
Nice.
It's a game. It's a match 3 game with. It's hard to describe. Unplayable at launch. Now that it's had patches, it's a fine puzzle game. It's all right.
Yeah, I spoke about it in the last.
I've played it for about 2 hours, and I've never thought about it since.
I did everything. I got every achievement.
Oh, really?
And it was an unplayable buggy mess, but I managed to do it somehow, and I'll probably never play it again. But it did make me overcome my fear of sliding puzzles.
Good. I'm very happy. And the last game I'll speak about for this segment is Carrion. I saw this was advertised quite a lot by Devolver Digital. Quite interesting, where you play as the horror character, the alien mass. It's interesting. It looks very interesting. It sounds very interesting. The atmosphere is very good. But as a game, it's a linear puzzle game. It's sort of a Metroidvania, but not really. It doesn't give you a very clear map or overworld, like knowledge of the overworld, and so the structure of the levels get quite confusing. You feel really like cool when you're sneaking around the vents and picking people off and grabbing them and eating them and stuff, but it does actually just boil down to a puzzle game with weirdly confusing Metroidvania map style. Not bad for what I think it's like one of the first games this developer's made, or like it's a smallish team. It looks very nice. What's quite annoying is that the sound loops, so it's like a drone, like your standard horror stuff, and then every now and then it goes but that happens almost on loop every 3 minutes, and it happens in like there's no like triggers in the environment, and so it feels very bizarre when that happens. It's fine.
Classic Devolver problem of like very strong concept, but it's like, how do you make a game out of that?
Yeah,
it's
pretty much. That's pretty
like
much
this.
It's it's reasonable. It's cheap. It's like 4 hours. It's like I beat it in a day.
It's not cheap. It's not fucking cheap. It's like 20 quid.
It's cheap when you take it from my library.
That's true.
It's 3 hours long. I was satisfied playing it, but it's not going to win a Game of the Year award. It's a solid 7 out of 10. Interesting concept, but very, very by the books indie game.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Matt, you played Metal Gear Solid 3.
Is this how we're starting this one? Yeah, I played... Great segue. Smooth. I played... this is embarrassing, actually. What's the fucking... remind me, what's the additions? Subsistence, right?
Peace Walker.
And the original one was called Snake Eater, and then the upgraded one was called Subsistence, correct?
Yes.
I played Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence for the first time this year. I've played MGS1 and MGS2 before, so I'm going through the series in that order. Don't know how I'm going to do 4 because it's fucking PS3. But
You're
anyway,
Has it not been imported to anything yet? Still,
no.
Man.
So don't know how I'm going to do that. But I played MGS3 for the first time and mostly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story, as I always do for Metal Gear Solid games. So I enjoyed the story and the characters, I think, more than the gameplay, especially considering MGS1 and MGS2. I prefer the gameplay in those games. MGS3 is, as everybody kind of knows, is slower, and you have to be more precise and you have to be more patient, which I don't really mind. My biggest issue with it is that the enemy AI is better than it ever has been at spotting you, and that they're not as dumb. So they spot you better when you make mistakes, and they spot you easier. So there's that side of it. And also, because the game is set in the past and is set mostly in the jungle, you don't have the technology that you do in the previous two games. So you just don't have things like being able to have a mini-map, and you don't have things like being able to see the cone visions for the guards like you do in the previous two games. And what this means is I found myself a lot of the time not knowing if I was really about to get caught. If this guard comes around the corner, is he going to see me or not? Well, I don't really know because you can't really see his vision and stuff. So I found a lot of frustrating moments like that where I thought to myself that I was in perfect cover and then I'd get spotted anyway, and vice versa too, where I thought I'm definitely going to get spotted and they just walk past. So I did have some problems with it. My other big problem with it actually was that because the game takes place so much in the jungle, and obviously they're going for like a realistic grounded look on the PS2, the visuals, lots of the visuals are all like muddy greens and browns and greys, and that's fine, but the guards are then obviously also in green and brown uniforms and stuff, and coupled with the fact that I don't have a mini-map, I can't see their positions, I can't see their vision cones, I can't run around just like kind of freely and dip behind walls and stuff like in MGS1 and MGS2. Because of that, I found a lot of the time like I don't even know what I'm looking at here, and kind of washed out PS2 graphics. Is that an enemy's head? Is that a leaf? Like I can't really tell. It sounds silly, but I bumped into it loads when I was playing. So I had some problems with it, but overall I thought it was a good time. Didn't like it as much as MGS1 and MGS2, but good game nonetheless. The last thing I'll say on it is that, and I think all the MGS games do this, is that weirdly, sometimes in games you have a silly story and it's played up for its silliness, and sometimes in games you have maybe kind of a serious topic, or in all media really, you might have a serious topic but it's played for jokes, it's played for silliness to make it like funny and stuff. Metal Gear Solid does something very strange, which is it has a very silly story that is played absolutely dead straight. So this is a game which has one of the female protagonists at one point on her motorbike drives into Otacon and does a wheelie and then hits Otacon in the chest with the wheel of the bike, and then backflips off Otacon's chest while staying on the motorbike, and then lands and then drives off. And like all of this, like just ridiculous nonsense. And all of this is played absolutely dead straight. You've got Otacon making cat meow noises to pull in his troops and stuff. you've got points where Otacon, who's a bad guy in this game, and I know of him, but just so people don't know, he's one of the villains in this game. At loads of points, Otacon has Snake exactly where he wants him.
Do you mean Revolver Ocelot?
I do, but
Otacon's the guy who pisses himself and says,
Hal Emmerich, yeah.
What am I saying? Otagon? I meant Ocelot.
Yeah. Ocelot, yes.
I apologise. I meant
Ocelot.
I apologise. I mean, Ocelot, you say it. Ocelot's the mind-making cat movie and stuff.
I know nothing about this series, and even I know that.
Sorry, I misspoke. Ocelot at points has Snake exactly where he wants him. And rather than just shoot him in the head, he does like a game of like Russian roulette for the flair of it. And there's loads of nonsense like this. And the game takes it all very seriously, which is actually quite interesting. And all the cutscenes are like brilliant. It's all camp nonsense and all over the top drama, and I actually quite enjoyed it for that reasons. And the ending is really cool with the twist about Big Boss as well. So didn't absolutely love it, didn't like it as much as MGS1 and MGS2, but fun nonetheless.
Yeah, the appeal of MGS is the nonsense story being taken seriously, and there are like strokes of genius in each game.
Oh yeah.
And there's multiple levels of enjoying MGS. The first was like, oh, this is storytelling video game art, and that's wrong. Second level is what we just described. Third level is fucking memes, MGS2. Oh, it's like he predicted the internet. Yeah. And in this one, the boss is obviously he's like the best character Kojima's ever done.
Yeah.
Our MGS3 is like the only one I haven't played, but so I can't really comment specifically. But I
enjoyed it.
That shit's good.
What I will say is what I said on my topic about sometimes finding it hard to, take down the guards and stuff because of the visuals. The controls are really outdated as well, having to hold like 3 buttons for that pistol, and you have to let go of square to shoot, just like the other ones. So I felt that a bit of a barrier to get into, especially playing it nowadays. What I will say is that obviously I played Subsistence, which is the version which has free camera control with the right stick. The original MGS3 didn't have this Snake Eater. It had the fixed cameras like in the first 2 games, and I have no idea how anybody played this game with a fixed camera. It must have been hell, because
it makes sense in 1 and 2 because like it's all corridors.
Yes,
all the games are just in corridors, but this one you're like fucking in the jungle.
Absolutely. So I have no idea how I played it, because I had enough problems with the freeform camera, let alone fixed. But obviously I played Subsistence, so that wasn't as much of an issue. But yeah.
I've always wanted to get into the series. I love loads of little things about it. I love the campy story that's told dead straight, and just the Kojima madness and all the like weird, interesting gameplay things they do in all the different games. But I'm so bad at the games, and every time I try to play, I'm like, man, I just can't. I can't do it. But it's always I wish I could like vicariously play through like Otis or something. Just have his knowledge through my head.
Speaking of stealth games, I spoke about this in the lockdown fucking podcast, but Hitman 2 is not a stealth game, but you do stealthy things. I recommend that to you, Jaz, because it's very fun and you don't have to stealth.
I've not played this.
I would like to play it.
I've seen loads of clips on it. It looks awesome.
I
think I need to do this, yeah.
And I talked about it in the other podcast, so I won't repeat myself too much, but it's just... You just have a scenario, and they're like, okay, kill this guy, and you're like, what do I do? And you just explore. Right? You learn it's a toy box where everything's like a fucking thing moving along. Everyone has a routine, everyone has a schedule, and you just pick up all these little details. Like, next time I can do this. He goes over here. I'll do that there. It's fucking great. It's freeform gameplay at its best, and you don't have to worry about stealth because you've got disguises.
Yeah. And
like the first time you play it, it's like super tense. You just barely scrape through. It's like, oh fuck, are they gonna spot me? It's like, no, and you just do it and you just escape. And then the next time you do it, you're fucking like, he's gonna be here at this exact point. Boom, fucking poisonous food. He dies.
You throw spaghetti at his head and he fucking knocks out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really good. You can just throw anything and knock people out and drag and put them in a bin. It's great.
I've
really, really recommend it.
I have been very tempted to play it because it does seem very fun and you can do a lot of fun things with it. I wondered about the series generally. You might be able to tell me, because all I remember about the Hitman series is it was a series. Then they had they sort of did this big thing about rebooting it, and then they were doing like episodes.
Absolution.
And then those episodes were apparently quite good, but they were so short and stuff. And then is Hitman 2 like a sequel to the episodes, but just a proper game?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about this. Yeah, so it disappeared after a while, after Absolution, because that was the first not the first 360 one, but it was like on the 360, and that was like, they turned it basically just into a generic stealth game with none of the fun elements of the previous ones. Then the developers got the rights to the IP itself, so they now develop and publish it themselves.
Oh, good.
They did Hitman 1 as a reboot, and that's where all of this insane, like, fucking freeform shit came back, and everyone's like, oh, that's sick, but it's episodic. Oh no, it sucks. Ugh. No one bought it. Hitman 2 came out, didn't do episodic, and included all of the stuff from Hitman 1 if you own that. So it's this fucking humongous game. And now they've announced Hitman 3, but exclusive to the Epic Store. Which means if you own it on Steam, you don't get the episodes back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's a big issue for me. So I'm gonna I really want to play that game because it's fucking fun as hell.
I could be wrong on this. Didn't they split from the publisher and the developers are now on their own or with a new publisher? Am I chatting?
Yeah, that's why I said they got the rights to the IP themselves. They're now the publishers for it.
I think that's exciting though. Like,
it is cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, you do love to see it.
That's it's great to see really big budget. I wouldn't say it's polished, but it's really janky, but in a fun way. And it's good to see like sort of technical gameplay in a high budget, beautiful looking thing, which I'll talk about in another game. Speaking of no. Speaking of Metal Gear Solid, I played Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
I do want to play this.
Oh, I do as well.
And as I said, there's multiple levels of enjoying Metal Gear Solid, and this one takes option B. This shit is stupid. Let's do stupid shit. And let me tell you, that is fun as fuck. It's a character action game like Devil May Cry, like Bayonetta, except you're Big Boy Raiden and fucking there's J-Rock playing in the background, and you're parrying Metal Gear Ray with your sword, and then you fight Senator Armstrong, and he's Nanomachine's son. No, he's a senator. He's a senator. Okay. The president can't be a bad guy in anything, even Japanese games. Wow. But fucking hell, but it's
still run.
Obviously the story is nonsense. It's like, because it's Metal Gear though, you do get like political stuff, and it's like, oh, the meme shit. It's easy to make fun of it because they literally say memes, and the plot is about memes in the Dawkins sense, not in the internet meme sense. That makes sense. But like, you can just ignore all that shit, and it's fucking. You should ignore that shit because it's fun. You get to slice people up into ribbons, and it simulates all of the ribbons falling apart and then explode, and you rip their spine out, crush it in anime style, and then a kanji appears on screen. You're like, fuck yes, this game is fucking sick.
I don't know anyone who's got a bad word to say about this game. Everybody I know who's played this has said this is one of the best fucking funnest games. It's so fun, and just a joke. Like, I mean, when. Like, isn't Senator Armstrong like a pro football player as well? And he just like rips his shirt off.
He used to be
yes, come on.
He used to be a college football star, and then like in the final confrontation, it's all serious and shit. He like throws you in the air as you come down, kicks you, and then it goes. It's like,
oh man,
and there you go.
Yeah,
that sums it up.
Is it on Steam? Because I do want to play
of course.
That. Like,
of course.
God, yes. Okay, I need to make a note because there's a lot of these. I'm like, yeah, I do want to do these.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I have another character action game, but I don't know if anyone wants to say
I think I'll go on to. I don't know how many games you've got left, Matt, because I have a couple of things, and then I can link into something that you spent a bit of time on this year, if that's all right.
Yeah,
I know what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. I'm pretty much done.
So
I know this done.
I have two smaller indie games that I want to praise quite heavily. One's called Carto, as in a cartographer. It's a small little. Sort of puzzle game. It's relatively cheap, and it's once again it's 4 hours long, very sweet. There isn't too much replayability, but it's fine because it's like a one and done interesting idea for a puzzle game.
It's about the little girl, right?
Yes.
Yes, I do know that one. I thought you were talking about JoJo Carto.
No, not the Part 8 antagonist. Anyway, it said the idea of the game is it's this lovely little cartoon world, and there's these people who fly above the sky, and they have like a magical map, and they can move parts of the map around, and it changes the landscape. And and they get blown out and separate. The little girl is separated from her nan, and she has to go back and find it. And so what you do is it's like a puzzle where you go around and picking up pieces of the map, and as you open the map, it gives you extra pieces that you can put in, and you have to move all the pieces around on the map to, like a sliding block puzzle, but you don't have to you can just pick the piece off and put it there, and then as you close the map, it changes how the map is. It's a really fun little game, and it does. Each section has its it's mechanic where the one section will be it's very odd shaped pieces. Another mechanic will be if you go underground you can't move anything unless you go overground, so you have to remember what the things are above and below. And the main character is a little girl who doesn't talk to anyone, and that's part of the story. She just winks or responds in emojis, and I find that kind of sweet. It's very good. It's charming. It's very charming, and all of the mechanics are used just enough, and then the story finishes just when it should do. Yes, excellent little game. I
saw that. It does look interesting. I might try that because I like maps.
Yeah, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and the puzzles all they're not super difficult, but they don't hold your hand and say, "Hey, why don't you put this over?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I get it now." And the other game I played is called Superliminal. Now this game I compare it a bit to Portal and the Stanley Parable. In that it's sort of you get this Scottish narrator who's like, "Hi, welcome to the relaxation therapy place, and here we blah blah blah." And this is the game where if you pick up an object and move it into a different perspective, it changes size.
Oh, this game, yeah.
Yeah, so you pick up a chess piece, you move back and then drop it, and then in the background it's dropped down to be a massive size. This is also another 4-hour game that it does a lot of very interesting visual perspective, optical illusion puzzles, and I think it's fantastic for its whole theme of there's probably a lot of psychology and stuff that goes into it, but all the puzzles are excellent. They very well taught. It feels a lot like Portal to start with, in that you're going through loads of test chambers, and then you break out of the test chambers, but you're not really, and then it sort of all goes crazy from there. But it's not like Portal levels of really excellent tight gameplay. It's just really, really good, and there's not much more I can recommend from it apart from it's clever, and it's excellent, and it has a fucking dev commentary set mode, which is so interesting. Just you go through in all these different departments, hey, we created this thing and this thing to code here because we thought when we initially made it would be easier for the player to come across here, and when we had it's very interesting. I like it. I would once again thoroughly recommend something as a complete package for one and done game.
It definitely looks like Stanley Parable, and that dev commentary thing, that's also in Half-Life 2.
Yes.
Sure. Which I played this year again, which I just remembered.
Jesus Christ!
It's Half-Life 2. You know it's good. It's a good game.
It's good. It's fantastic.
Still need to play it.
So, retrospectively, a lot of people say, it's just fucking. They just built a physics engine and it's just a gimmicky shit. But when you replay it, you don't realize how well the physics engine is integrated into the gameplay. It's not just a gimmick. The whole game is based around it.
When did it come out? 2002 or 3?
4.
2004. Okay. I mean, that's extremely impressive still for back then.
Obviously that's the pioneer of you put a thing in a thing and it fucking rattles around, shakes, and explodes you into the moon if you stand on top of it. But it's still a really fucking fun game. It has really satisfying shooting, great level design, obviously, great narrative, obviously. So believe it or not, Half-Life 2 is a good game. Okay.
I do want to play Half-Life Alyx actually, but I don't want to spend
$1,000.
I don't want to spend $1,000 on a Valve Index. So.
Yeah. Jin said when COVID is dead, I can go around and use his VR headset, so I'm interested.
Do you know which one he has, actually?
5.
Yeah, he has the 5.
The 5, okay, cool.
I spoiled the ending for that game for myself because I couldn't resist, and it's good. I won't say anything.
I don't know anything about Half-Life apart from you're Gordon Freeman.
If you're a fan of Half-Life, the ending of Half-Life Alyx will do something.
Surely after Half-Life Alyx, they've got to be making more Half-Life games now. Surely, it was quite popular even for a VR game.
I don't know that.
I don't want to say anything on that subject.
Okay.
Valve are like Nintendo, where they just seem to go through like years and they just don't do anything.
They just do what they want.
What have you been doing this entire time? And now they're just like chilling.
Yeah,
Nintendo
made Animal Crossing,
games.
and then that's it. They've taken their long 6-month break.
No games, just vibes. We just did R&D for 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to talk about Mortal Shell, a game I played this year.
Oh, here we go.
As this will lead into a lot of things. Yeah, Dark Souls. Because every year I have this uncontrollable urge to either play Dark Souls 1, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, or anything. And I've already played Dark Souls 3 this year. So I thought, I'll play this game called Mortal Shell, which some people at launch or at its alpha were saying, this is excellent. It's like a really good looking Dark Souls, and it's as good as Dark Souls. And I was thinking, now that's a really big thing to throw around, saying it's as good as one of the greatest games ever made. I'll have a look. Turns out those people are fucking liars. They're dirty, fucking disgusting liars. They don't know anything.
No one can do it. No one can do it right.
No.
And I don't know why.
So,
like,
okay, so this game feels like a portfolio to try and get a job at From Software, because
nice.
Yeah, all of the talent of like the artistry is there. And there is clear talent in these people, but they need a game designer and they need someone with a genius brain like Hidetaka Miyazaki. Because the idea of the game is interesting in that it's like Dark Souls combat, your standard dodge roll, you die in a couple of hits sort of thing. You have a harden mechanic, which is your shield, except it blocks all damage once. And you have like a riposte. It's all fine. All works fine. The enemies are relatively varied and have varied movesets. It's just like when it plops you into the overworld, you go, oh no. You'll plop straight into a giant swamp with no idea of where to go. It quite quickly shows
bear traps everywhere.
Bear traps fucking everywhere, and it says, okay, over there, go over there. You go over there, and there's the bonfire. And the upgrades. And basically, the thing with this game is it gives you visions of like 4 different weapons and 4 different bodies. And because the map looks relatively samey quite a lot, they have some distinct, like very distinct areas. There's a giant bat over here. Oh, that's distinct. And those show up in the like the vision, like, oh, go to this place, then this place, then this place. But the problem is everything in between it is so samey looking. It's very easy to get lost, and the level design is nowhere near, not even close to Dark Souls levels. So you often just like wander around the dark. You pick up, you fight some boss thing, you get a new body, and you don't level up and improve any of your stats or anything like Dark Souls. You have 4 different types of bodies. One is you have more health than others. One is you have more riposting ability points or something. One has you have more stamina, which you should always choose because it's easily the best. And one's a balanced. And then you have like different weapons you can use. The idea is it gives you like sort of upgrade abilities instead of like XP. So your XP is spent on, for the stamina guy, he can sometimes take stamina damage instead of health damage. Those sorts of like weird perks. But they're nothing, you don't really feel any progression at all. And then when you...
And the animations are jank as fuck.
Yes, so some of them are fine, but they have this problem where a lot of the enemies are resting. They're in a resting, sitting down state. And if you tiptoe over that line... then they immediately go into the attack animation. as in like scarily quick, turned around, running towards you, almost like they had an attack animation and they shrunk it down in terms of speed so that it's sped up to get to the normal point, and so it feels really janky that way. The areas look quite nice. You go to like the ice area, like a castle area and whatever. You find a new weapon, and the weapons are all fine. They all have decent abilities and stuff, but what really lets it down is the general areas are big, wide open areas with a puzzle on it. Like, for example, the castle. You just this massive expanse of like onyx. You're like, where the fuck do I go? And you have to find 3 very specific spots on this map to open a gate at the complete other end, and it's huge. And it's
literally the shittiest part of Dark Souls 3.
Yes, it's Lost Izalith in all these different areas, except for like the
ice. That's the swamp place in Dark Souls 3 with like the 3 bits, and then it opens a random gate.
Exactly like that. And then there's some areas which are just a big load of corridors, and I wonder if there's enemies hiding around the corner. Yeah, of course there are. But the problem is once you beat the bosses, and the bosses are quite piss easy, if I'm honest, you have to then go back through the exact same level backwards with barely any changes. There are sometimes changes to the game design, and just all of the enemies become weird gremlins. And yeah, it's annoying. And
it's like 6 hours long, you said.
It's about 6 to 10 hours long, yeah.
Which makes that backtracking feel even worse, I imagine.
And unfortunately, it feels like it really does. It is padding, and it could have been good. It really could have been. But the problem is unlike the you don't realise how good Dark Souls combat is until you play something like this, and then you realise, like, at the first I was getting my absolute arse handed to me by the standard enemies. It's like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Turns out the secret in this game, instead of dodging into enemies, do not barely dodge into them, barely ever dodge, just walk backwards and you'll always be out of their attack range, and they'll always overextend, and then you can just go in and hit them. And once you realise that, every single enemy in the game falls to this, including the bosses, and it becomes an absolute doddle.
That just seems like straight up bad design.
Yeah.
Because like Dark Souls is based entirely around how players actually act in that system. Yeah. And every game sort of like evolves that more and more.
Yeah. And
like Dark Souls 2
yeah.
didn't do.
But I mean, and even I will just, one last thing is they give you each weapon a super move, and that means as soon as you execute the super move, you go into a Street Fighter animation, which makes you invulnerable to damage, and you deal almost half a boss health bar worth of damage. And it's absolutely bonkers because you just go absolute apeshit on the boss and then trigger the move and then stagger them, and then your stamina comes right back up and you just hit them loads more. It's like, okay, whatever, dude.
That seems super antithetical to the whole point of Dark Souls games.
It is. Like, these guys said, it looks really pretty and it's a good first attempt. It's just, better luck next time.
And hey, if you're going to rip off anything, rip off Dark Souls, because like eventually we can have this be a whole genre with lots of other good games, not just FromSoft ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even FromSoft can fuck up.
Exactly. Am I right, Matt?
Yeah, I played a bit of Dark Souls 2 this year. Just people know. I've only played Dark Souls 1. I'm going through in order of FromSoft releases. So I'm actually on to Bloodborne now, but I'm so early into it, I won't talk about it. I did play and finish Dark Souls 2 earlier this year. Didn't hate it. Thought it was okay. I thought it was good, but for a Dark Souls game, I think it's okay. It's not as good as Dark Souls 1. The biggest problem Dark Souls 2 has is that the worst part for me about Dark Souls combat is where you have to take on more than one enemy at once. I've always found that frustrating in Dark Souls combat, because Dark Souls combat, for me at least, is like a back and forth flow type system where, because your attack animations take ages, they can't be cancelled, and there's lots of end lag and startup frames, etc. It means you have to be precise when you attack and when you don't attack, and you have to wait for them to attack and dodge at the right moments, etc. So when it's one-on-one and there's a back and forth between you and the AI enemies, I think that's really good. The issue, and I found this in Dark Souls 1 as well, when the game does force you into multiple enemy fights, is that when there's two enemies there's just very limited times where you feel like you actually have space to attack and not get hit back. So it feels like there's a lot of waiting around for both enemies that you're fighting. Sometimes it's more than two, but where you're waiting for the enemies to all do their attack animations almost in sync, so then give you a spot for then you can go in and attack yourself. And Dark Souls 2 has a pretty heavy emphasis on combat versus more than one enemy at a time. And I think that's the game's biggest downfall. The rest of it, there's changes from Dark Souls that they made, which I don't think they should have. Some of the things are different. I don't mind a lot of the world design. I know there's the things about how a lot of the world doesn't make sense, and that you go up in an elevator and then there's a lava place and stuff. There's a lava castle above the place you're in, which doesn't make
sunken lava castle.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of that which isn't obviously as good as the intricate world of Dark Souls 1. And I do see that, and that is a problem. But for me, that sort of stuff is all kind of secondary to the fact that the minute-to-minute gameplay doesn't feel as good. The combat doesn't feel as good in Dark Souls 2 as it does in Dark Souls 1. Again, I think there are moments in Dark Souls 1 like this, but maybe not any as bad as in Dark Souls 2. The kind of infamous moment where you have to light a windmill on fire. Light a windmill on fire with a torch. And to do that, you have to go around a very narrow corner, which onto a ledge, the ledge doesn't even look like you should be able to stand on it. You have to go around a very narrow corner onto a narrow ledge, and then you have to set fire to a metal part of a windmill, which then somehow stops poison filling up a boss room. It is unbelievable. I don't know how that got past testing.
I was when you said you were playing that, I was waiting for the moment. You were like, how the fuck do I kill this bitch in the poison fucking water?
Yeah.
I'm like, you've burned the bonfire, idiot.
I was so lucky in that I accidentally found it whilst I had I just accidentally found the burning of the windmill just because I was exploring everywhere. And so I was like, why is everybody complaining about this fucking mission? And I never had any poison at all. I was really lucky.
Yeah. There's a lot of Dark Souls 2 which it sort of seems like they were going for something, but then couldn't go all the way, either because they were too worried about, I don't know, upsetting fans of the first one, or they just ran out of time. There's a lot of emphasis on torches and lighting and stuff, lighting certain things and stuff like that. But none of it really plays, or I never felt any of that really played that much into how you play the game.
Yeah,
it feels like, there's loads of places to light torches and stuff, but there's almost no point. I think I read somewhere that at one point they were going to have some dynamic lighting sort of engine going on where you could light up rooms and stuff, and they'd have really cool shadows being cast, and it will be dynamic. But that's not in the final game, or at least it's not to any good degree.
They very blatantly just cut it straight out, because the only thing that has dynamic lighting is your player character.
Yeah.
So you've just got this completely flat, no sources of light, no shadows being cast or anything except for you when you hold a torch, and it's so shockingly ugly. It's disgusting. I hate that game. It's so bad.
I mean, I didn't hate Dark Souls 2. I finished it to completion, and I had a good time with it still. I don't think it's awful.
Well, the thing is,
it's
more
Dark
Souls.
It every time.
It's more Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's a bad Dark Souls game, but it's still a good game.
It's like when you go from Dark Souls, which is so. I mean, I know Dark Souls is like the improvement of Demon Souls, but so revolutionary, so just an excellent whole round experience. And then you go to Dark Souls 2 is more of the gameplay that I wanted. There's interesting new things. It's not, the world doesn't feel as intricately linked and everything's a bit linear. Fine, and some of the combat is there's 3 sentinels instead of 2, haha. Some of that is okay. But it's, it's not 10 out of 10. It's solid 7 to 8 out of 10, fine game.
They hadn't established what a Souls game is. No. And when you play Bloodborne, and then going into Dark Souls 3, you suddenly realise, this is what a Souls game is. Yeah. And Dark Souls 2 becomes very clear that it's not the same team. It's the B team in From Software. And,
which they even say in loads of interviews, don't they? The guy who did Lost Isles basically got fired.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
This will be controversial, but I'll end it on this. I actually think some of the lows of Dark Souls 1 are lower than some of the lows of Dark Souls 2.
Yes, Lost Isles, we know.
Yeah,
Dark Souls 2 doesn't have any Lost Isles. Or the fucking... What's the fucking boss where you slide down the fucking hill?
Yeah, Lost Isles.
We know.
Yeah, Lost Isles sucks. Yeah, we know.
All right. Well, listen, you guys dismiss it, but like Dark Souls.
I don't dismiss it.
Let me finish.
As Lost Archive is so bad in Dark
finish.
Souls 1, it's a blight on that almost perfect game.
Just saying.
It's even worse because it's in such a good game. It makes it even worse than it actually is, and it's already.
I dread that area every single run so much just because of how bad.
Right,
it is.
and what I'm trying to say is that Dark Souls 2 doesn't have any areas that are as bad as that. However, it doesn't have any amazing moments that are as amazing as, for instance, the Four Kings fight for me in Dark Souls 1 and, the DLC and stuff. So yeah, not as lows, but not as high highs either. Sure. Although a highlight for me is that boss fight in Dark Souls 2 where you fight it's like the knight. He's like a mirror knight, and you fight him in the rain.
Oh yeah,
and the light is effects cool. He's got like a mirror shield, and the rain and the thunder is like the light. Yeah, like more of that. But it was okay. I enjoyed it still. So yeah.
So Bloodborne.
I'm not talking about Bloodborne. I'm too early in. I'm too early in.
He's playing
next year.
He's playing Bloodborne, everyone. He's gonna love Bloodborne.
Playing Bloodborne. We've done it. We've made
Got
it.
him. Got him.
I'm in Yarnum.
He's in Yarnum. It's a good game. Moving on, I played the Wonderful 101 Remastered.
So did I. I haven't finished it yet.
You didn't finish it?
No, but I'm enjoying it, so I have played quite a lot of it, though.
As a lifelong fan of Hideki Kamiya, this is his crown jewel. This is the best game Platinum Games have ever made. It's one of the best character action games ever made. In fact, by objective standpoints, you could probably say it is the best character action game ever made and one of the best action games ever made. So I've been a lifelong fan of his, and I bought it when it first came out, but I didn't have a Wii U, so I didn't end up playing it because you were always playing fucking Mario Kart or whatever. And then by the time I ended up getting a Wii U, I only used it for Smash, so I never ended up playing it in the original release. So I was one of the two people who bought that game, me and Hideki. And then they remastered it because fucking they needed to do that, and turns out it's really fucking good. The things we said last year about Astral Chain and how you're always using the combat abilities are also like the maneuvering abilities, and how you're doing such a wide variety of tasks all the time using all of your abilities. It's so good. I mean, it's a must play in my mind. It's one of my favorite games.
Oh, nice.
I like it. It's fun. It's goofy. It's Power Rangers, and it's suitably over the top for a Hideki Kamiya game. Like right from the start, you're throwing buildings at each other and shit. You're punching holes in. It's absolute. It's so over the top, and it's happy with it.
It's a spectacle.
It's a spectacle, absolutely.
Yes.
The combat is interesting. I keep finding it confusing just because I'm bad at these games. I keep going.
It definitely has more of a learning curve than any other character action game, just because of the drawing shit.
Sure. So I mean, we're playing the PC version, obviously the remaster. So you're doing it. I'm doing it with control. I don't know if Otis is using the control of the mouse or whatever.
Yeah, controller,
okay.
Of course.
So I don't find a problem drawing the things. I keep accidentally recalling or dodging instead of parrying and things like that. For some reason, my brain can't comprehend the actual so many different controls and things I have to do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing with the game. That's just because I keep playing it for 2 or 3 missions. Oh, this is great. And then it's I'm playing Oxygen Not Included. Oh, okay, so I'll play something else.
Yeah, sorry.
And then I keep going back to it and having to relearn. But I'm enjoying it the whole time. It's silly fun the whole time, except for the bit where you go into the Wii U pad and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and they couldn't really do anything about that, really. It's it was funded by Nintendo, so they must have been use the fucking gamepad. I don't want to, but it's still there. But on it being a silly story, I will say this is the fucking same guy who gave us "I Wanted to Fill Your Dark Soul with Light."
Yeah, of course.
And the story and characters in this game are actually you probably haven't got this far, but it's actually quite good. It's still silly and boisterous and flamboyant and all that.
I mean, it's just Power Rangers.
But towards the end,
that's all it is.
No, it's true. It is a very Sentai story, but it's actually genuinely good. And towards the end, I always compare it to Gurren Lagann, where the scale, you will not believe the scale that it ends up at, and that is the main reason to keep sticking at it, because towards the end it's just bonkers.
I mean that's when I played Devil May Cry 3. I was sort of okay, and it just kept getting more and more absurd, but laughably funny Like, oh, he's like running up and down the side of a thing with like he's shooting rocket launchers at each other.
You want me to describe that scene again? Because I will gladly describe that scene.
Do it.
He runs down the side of the tower. He throws his sword down, impales 12 bats. He shoots the gun so it goes even faster and it's breaking the sound barrier. He runs after it. He runs so fast that his like arm's setting on fire. He grabs it, jumps off it, and gets eaten by a worm. It's the best game ever.
Yeah, Hideki Kamiya in Another Life. He directed loads of animes. That's his like he's really good at spectacle. And I've heard Bayonetta gets crazy when they're like lobbing universes at each other. But
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's just nonsense.
I mean,
Wonderful 101 isn't nonsense.
Oh yeah, okay. It's at least tongue in cheek and makes sense for this sort of stuff because you watch Power Rangers. By the end of it, they turn into the giant robot and they punch each other. You got that shit in here. It's great. I feel like a child playing it with a smile on my face, and I will. I even though a lot of these games I'm like, oh yeah, I'll play some more Nier Automata. This game I will play more of. I'm not lying.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Since we're on the topic, I probably won't do the 9 minutes and 42 seconds as I threatened, but you can just put on the.
I am the storm that is from.
So we talk. Obviously, the game came out last year, I've been looking forward to. It's Devil May Cry 5. I've been looking forward to Devil May Cry 5 for 11 years, and it came out. I was not disappointed with it, but then multiple games came out that year, and just completely blew it out of the water in some degree. But this year, I replayed it again, because Virgil came out, and this has really solidified in my mind why Devil May Cry 5 is good. We obviously it's fun to look at the crazy story and be like, oh, wacky woohoo shit, and like, oh, there's all this technical gameplay and all that sort of shit. But the real strength of character action games, especially Devil May Cry, is how it makes you realise that character action is such a fitting name for it. Because when you play Virgil, it makes you realise how distinct every character's gameplay is, like fundamentally. Like, you've got Dante, wacky woohoo pizza man. He's got like fucking 12 weapons. He's flying all over the place. He's got whoa, fucking trick, sword trick, gun trick, all that shit. And then you've got Virgil, who is his edgy brother, who thinks he's a fucking weeb, and he gets powered up. The less if you don't whiff any moves, if you don't dodge randomly for no reason, and if you just hit everything. His concentration meter builds up, his motivation increases to such levels, and you're like, this is fucking it. This is the pinnacle of action games, even though I said Wonderful 101 was. And I fucking love Devil May Cry, is the summation of it. And so I said it before, but Hitman, I like that it's a sandbox and you can do all this technical stuff if you study enough. And Devil May Cry is exactly the same thing. Like, it just throws enemies at you, and it's like, oh, deal with it. And you have so many ways to deal with it, and it's just so fun to explore the mechanics. And even if you're not into that sort of thing, the spectacle that it provides, even with like basic level of I'm going to do Stinger over and over again. Oh, it called me Smoking Sexy Style, that's sick. That is more than enough to carry you through it. And to know that you can still make a AAA game in this day and age and have it be this technical is such a fucking relief. And I will always be thankful. Capcom, thank you.
I really did like Devil May Cry 5, and it was so good that I'm tempted. I'm more tempted than a lot of other character action games to play it if it's the thing is, if it was like a more of a different story instead of fighting the same bosses over and over again, just a different play set, I'd be more interested in playing it, because there is a lot of stuff in Devil May Cry 5 where I'm like, I really want to not just watch a YouTube video of this, of like what the differences are and stuff. But like I said, I'd play Devil May Cry 6.
It's the same campaign, because it's about perfecting it.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't appeal to you, that's like fine. You just play it once, whatever.
I mean, that's definitely up your street more up my street. Like, I can tell. I can watch these videos and be like, that's really cool. Whereas I'm like, stinger. Uppercut, hey, I'll do a thing, and then I did a really cool big move after that as well, and I got Smoking Sexy Style. I feel great. I just parry everything. I'm really good at parrying.
The best possible summary I can give of Devil May Cry 5 is that Virgil has a move called Judgment Cut, and you can do an instant Judgment Cut if you hold the button and release it within like a 2-frame window, and it will come out instantly. And you can do that up to 4 times in a row. So that's basically 4 more or less frame perfect inputs in a row. And if you do 4 in a row, he says jackpot. And this is a whole DMC thing. It's a big famous catchphrase that everyone loves to say. And then the end cutscene of this game, that Dante says jackpot, and then it continues on after that, and he's like, hey Virgil, why don't you say jackpot with me, man? We used to love saying that. And he's like, I have no recollection of that. And meanwhile, you've been fucking doing instant Judgment Cuts the entire fucking game. Jackpot, jackpot, jackpot. That is the appeal of Devil May Cry in a nutshell. Thank you for listening.
It feels like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
I don't think I have too much left to talk about apart from obviously the big game. So is there anything else anybody else needs to talk about?
Otis needs to do ONI, and then we'll do the last one.
Yeah, okay.
We also didn't mention Doom Eternal, but I mean,
it came out a long time ago.
It came out a long time ago. Very fun.
It's really good.
Bang, really fun. I love it. It's good fun.
I'm going to say this about everything, but Doom Eternal is the Devil May Cry of shooters.
Yeah,
Doom Eternal feels like a panic attack. If you had to put a panic attack in a video game, that's what I feel when playing Doom Eternal.
I literally, my arms physically hurt from the adrenaline rush of the Slayer gates.
There is shit everywhere. There is... While Doom 2016, for me, felt like a flow state, where it's just you and your shotgun, and you're just like in a flow state between things. Doom Eternal, for me, feels like a panic attack, where not only is everything ramped up to 11, but you also now have a load of systems which you didn't have in 2016, which you now have to worry about. You've got to worry about that freeze coming off cooldown. You've got shit all over the place. It's more than just shotgun and chainsaw like there was in 2016. So I do think it feels different to the previous game, but in a good way still. You know, it's like you turn into a sweaty mess playing that game, trying to keep everything together, and it's good.
Yeah, I like that you actually have to have some modicum of strategy with like the chainsaws and the flame belch and all that sort of shit. And like we said before in the other podcast, is Doom 2016 is more like distilled version of that, whereas Eternal is like everything's massive. And yeah, great game. Would have been game of the year.
Yeah, I mean, before I in fairness, like, because I'm not very good at shooters. I love that it's still brought back to that old health pack, armor, constant upgrades, and you just feel more and more powerful. Even though at the end of Doom, you were like, I'm fucking God! And this you're like, I'm God and his killer! It's so good. Yeah. And they're putting DLC out, which is apparently equally as good. So I probably will play more of it. And the soundtrack, you turn that shit up to full volume, you start shooting shit in hard mode, and your dick gets rock hard, and your muscles expand. It's great. I love this game. Like we were probably saying, this probably would have been game of the year for us. But another game came out.
Cool.
But before we got there, Oxygen not included.
Go on, Alex. Do it.
All right. Loser. I'll get out the way. I'm sorry, everyone. This is my time to cry in the corner while saying I'm a genius, I love science, I fucking love science. Right, so while Jaz was playing Wonderful 101, stealing my library as per fucking usual, I was looking through his games, like, what can I play? Because there's been a years long search in my life to find a game that I could just have on, sort of in the way that Jaz played Slay the Spire back in the day, before all of this coronavirus shit. Something I can just play, not have to like have execution like Devil May Cry, or a fighting game where I have to think. Well, I play Yuri and I don't think anyway. But anyway, I fucking saw Oxygen Not Included. And I remember Jaz saying he bought it because it's Clay, the inventors of Don't Starve.
Yes.
Inventors? Whatever. But I knew it as a colony sim, like RimWorld Jaz, which you didn't talk about.
Shit,
even
I
though
played
you
RimWorld.
But well, I'll integrate that into this, don't worry. So I just tried it out, and it's one of my favourite games of all time, and definitely my favourite sim game of all time. And simulation games are sort of weird. I keep them as a separate category in the same way that I keep fighting games as a separate category. Like, I've got my favourite games, Bloodborne, all that shit. Those are games. You got like fighting games over there. and you've also got simulation games. I've been playing that shit my whole life. Fucking Zoo Tycoon, baby.
Yeah. I know exactly what
Tycoon,
you're talking about.
And Colony Sims, I always used to think, you need to be a specific kind of person to play those games, and you do. And it turns out I am one of those people. Because I've played it in the last 2 months. I've played 250 hours of this game.
Nice.
And so what? I tried to think of like a through line here of like, why has this game in particular really fucking got to me? And I hate to say it, but it's the Devil May Cry of simulation games. In that you're just given. So like the big deal with the game is that it's got all these simulated gases. That's why it's called Oxygen Not Included, because like every gas is simulated. They all have different what's the term? Densities. So they go.
Oh shit! Is that why it's called that?
Layers and shit. Yeah.
That's really clever. I like that. Sorry.
Well,
sorry.
But the thing is, the oxygen and the gas and all that shit, while it is very technically impressive and it's like got gameplay to it, and like a lot of what you do is involving that, the real star of the show is thermodynamics. Our friend thermodynamics.
Yes, of course. PV equals nRT. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So, what separates this from other colony sims and simulation games in general is like, there's this whole structure to it. You get wood, and then you get stone, and then you get metal, and then you go into space. Like, that's how every strategy simulation game works. But this game asks you, what happens if you actually were to do this? What if you built a metal forge? You don't just do that, and there's no consequences as a result of it. Fucking heat exists. You're producing energy, and that energy emits heat. And if you've got that in your base, you're gonna fucking boil everyone to death. And it's just a completely new way of thinking about games in general that I've never really had before.
It's actual engineering,
it's
like the actual engineering.
Yeah, and there's like, it's not entirely one-to-one with reality, obviously, but there's actual entropy in the game where if you just leave it long enough, all of the usable energy in the map will just dissipate throughout everything, and you're just left with everything in stasis. Everything's the same, and it's just. It's like altered my perception of reality. Like when I go downstairs and I turn the oven on, I'm like, what is the thermal conductivity of this oven? Is this going to heat up the room? And can I potentially take that energy and put it into a tank of water and boil that water and use it to power a steam turbine, which will then be used to go into my battery grid during the night when the solar panels I have on top aren't.
Sure.
But shit like that. It's just fucking. It's just, I love it so much. It's one of my favourite games.
I mean, when I first played it, it was very much like, I had that don't starve mentality of like, pick up the axe, make a thing, and then that's going to make a bigger thing which I can use to build a bird cage. And in this, it was very much like a standard, get the toilets, get the blah blah blah, and then it got to like one area where it was like the next 5 unlocks were all just different pipes and like power switches and stuff, and I was like, I don't know how to do this shit. I'm not a fucking engineer.
Obviously, there is a big learning curve to this game. It took me like 90 hours before I would say I was competent enough to do a serious base.
You have a PhD in physics right now. Yeah.
I really do not. I just like science. I fucking love science, as they say. So, like the fluid dynamics and all that. Like once you understand how the pipes work, it becomes its own interesting like sub puzzle of everything, because there's so much flexibility, because like a lot of other games, like I said, is more like you have a progression, you have a research tree, whatever. This game, you notice quite quickly that you just unlock all the research pretty quickly, and then you realize, oh shit, this has consequences like thermodynamics and all that shit. It's dumping gas. What do I do with all this gas? So it's more about how can you actually create a functioning, sustainable system using all of these tools, and the pipes are the best example of that, because it really is just like a puzzle once you understand how like you're controlling the flow.
It's making a completely efficient and completely clean system.
And I also want to point out something that gets overlooked in this game quite a lot, and it's something I noticed because like in 2013, 14 or whatever, when you were playing Don't Starve all the fucking time and I lived with you, I've always noticed that sound design was fantastic. It's like very, very distinctive. Like it's very cartoony and goofy, and that does so much for this game, because I've been talking about all the technical shit, and how deep and wide it all is. But then you've got these delightful cartoon duplicates that act and sound like hamsters.
Yeah.
And like when you're dragging stuff along, building a long row of ladders is like a major scale. Like it's all these little things.
Clay have a
that
wonderful
add so much
sense of
to it.
style and presentation, and it's
Yeah.
throughout all of their games. And I'm a big fan of them. I even though Oxygen Not Included is probably not for me as a person, I can still appreciate the craft work that went into it, and like, you know, as a game.
Yeah. And like I said, it is a colony sim, so you've got an aspect of that. And the only colony sim that I played before this was RimWorld.
Yeah, which I played,
and the thing that
it's more simple and straightforward. So
It's not more simple. So that's the thing I was going to say. So Oxygen Not Included is very complex in a way, but there's actually, if you get down to the nitty gritty, there's actually no micromanagement at all. It's all like more on a wider scale. You're never going like, you do this at a specific time, you wear this specific thing. There's no micromanagement. It's macro management. RimWorld is more about, you have all of these fucking statistics all everywhere, and you're micromanaging the fuck out of it. And there's definitely an appeal to that. And distinguishing that type of game from Oxygen Not Included is basically what I was trying to explain with everything I said. But
I found it easier. I found it slightly easier. I don't know why. I comprehended it more. Even though RimWorld is far more obtuse in terms of it, like you can't even find out what materials you're missing from a thing, so that you can't build it very easily. You know, it's UI
they do play up
bad.
Yeah, they play up that like, there's an AI storyteller and you're going about your own thing. So that's sort of a thrust to play that. Whereas Oxygen Not Included is more like a sandbox, a science sandbox, and you have to figure out what you can do with the things it gives you.
Sure.
And the DLC came out recently, and that completely changed the game. So let me. So it restructured the game to a much more. It has a structure basically. Before it was just like get exosuits, then you can do everything. Whereas this one, they've split everything up into multiple planets. So you're transporting goods from one planet to another planet, and they're all much smaller, so the game runs much better. And providing you with much more structure and more exciting things to do before the late game is going to do a lot for the game as a whole. It's definitely an improvement, but at time of recording, it's not finished. It's an alpha, so the game very actively says, "Hey, this only goes up to mid game. You can't do any of the complicated shit that you're used to doing." So that's why I haven't been playing it as much recently, because there's a point where it's like, I've reached sustainability already and I can't do anything else.
Sure.
So, yeah, I really recommend Oxygen Not Included.
Cool.
Good game.
Okay, it's time.
I think it's time for all of our Game of the Years. I think this is...
Game that came out this year of the year, yeah.
I think this is pretty unanimous even amongst most people as well. I mean, there's like games of like Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us 2 or whatever. Fuck that. Who fucking cares?
Fuck that.
Fuck those fucking games. Let's play Hades. Oh boy.
Hades.
Now, Matt noticed how many of the previous is it Supermassive or Supergiant?
Supergiant.
Supergiant. How many Supergiant games have you played before this?
Right.
Who goes first? You go first.
Yeah, so I played Bastion, obviously, like I think we all did.
Yep.
I loved Bastion when it came out. I then missed Transistor.
Interesting.
Which was 2014. So I actually have never played Transistor. I then played Pyre in 2017, which I had massive issues with and really didn't like. So I was sort of not done, but you know, after Bastion, I was really hyped for Supergiant Games as a developer. Yeah. And then after Pyre, because I didn't play Transistor, obviously. After Pyre, I was quite down on them, so I wasn't that interested. But then everybody started raving about Hades. I realised it was Supergiant Games again. So I thought, hey, maybe it's a good one, like they did the Bastion.
Yeah.
And I played it, and it really feels like they've learned a lot of lessons from Pyre, which I think was quite well received critically anyway. But it feels like they've learned a lot of lessons on that. Yeah, so that's that from me.
All of their games in general, I think, got quite high critical acclaim.
Oi, let me talk about Supergiant.
All right, bitch.
It's my turn to talk. So I played Bastion back in the day, and because Yahtzee gave it a good review, and that was very rare. I guess it's still rare, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it will always hold a very special place in my heart, because that's when I first Sequelitis came out. So I was like, oh, game design, that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah. And I like how you can make narrative things come across by using game mechanics. That's fucking sick. So then I played Bastion, and it's the first game that I came to my own conclusion about how good games can be to tell a story. Like, that fucking shit with the ending is still really fucking good. I love Bastion a lot.
Yep.
So I was fucking hyped for Transistor, and it's fucking shit. Yep. It seems like it's essentially just Bastion again. But like, how can we change the combat? Let's make it turn-based, slightly strategic. System. And then they were like, they clearly heard people going that they were really good storytellers. So like, how can we make a pretentious as fuck story? I know, let's do this wank about how she wants to fuck her sword and her sword is her husband and all this shit.
Oh god,
and it's like, that. And that completely shut me down. I was so excited about Bastion. I have like signed fucking artwork and all that sort of shit, and never thought about Supergiant ever again. I didn't even notice that Pyre existed. And then Hades was announced earlier. Well, it's actually been out in early access for quite a while, but I was only aware of it when it came to Steam in January in early access. And I watched some of it. I was like, oh, it looks like a Supergiant game, but it's a roguelike, and it looks like a very standard roguelike. And then I played it. Jaz.
I have done basically the same as Otis. I hated Transistor. I was interested in Pyre because basketball RPG. Okay, I haven't played it. Yeah, and then I've heard nebulously of Hades as a game that is a roguelike, and my brain was turned off. I was like, oh, another roguelike. Okay, whatever. Then I got told to play this game. Boy oh boy, does this blow every other roguelike out of the water? Pretty much. Yes. In terms of storytelling, gameplay itself is excellent, but storytelling, this is it. This is roguelikes encapsulated.
Because they actually designed a story to be told within the framework of a roguelike, and not like, I think that shows Supergiant at their strength. It's like the way that they meld gameplay and story together. No other developer really does that in the same kind of way. And while it is as I sort of said as a worry before I played it, it's like, oh, it seems like a standard roguelike, and it is, but everything is so well polished. Yeah. Like, it's the most fucking shinily polished game I've maybe ever played. Do you know what the key strength is?
While it is the standard gameplay is it's a very good or decent roguelike. It's the pacing.
Yeah, like Dungeon
Crawl. The pacing is so good of how it deals out new things, new dialogue, new things to do during the runs. Even though it doesn't feel, it's so good that everything feels new each time.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the fact that they used a Greek tragedy or a Greek myth for it is a perfectly fitting setting, I think.
What I will say is, after playing Pyre, which, just quickly, is basketball, it's 3-on-3 basketball, except the other members of your team don't move when you move. So you're constantly having to move one person with the ball and then move a second person into a position so that then next turn you can then pass them the ball. And even with Pyre, that gameplay, if it sounds boring, it's because it is. And in Pyre, there's not even that much gameplay. It's a lot of visual novel, because we don't have animations here. They're, the Supergiant, really cool, good artwork, but it's still artwork with text. And Pyre is full of just still artwork and reading text. And that's okay, but for me, I didn't love it. I thought it was okay, like the story going along, and I didn't even finish it because the breaks in actual gameplay is some sort of crappy 3v3 basketball, and it just didn't click with me. So I kind of felt I didn't want to have like too heavy of a just sat there kind of reading a visual novel type game, and also there's a million roguelikes, so I was like, Jesus, I'm not going to enjoy this, because it's going to be the mixture. It's going to be standard roguelikes with lots of sitting and reading lots of kind of expository text. But no, they merge the two together in the sense that, as Otis was saying, the roguelike is all about constantly doing runs over and over and over again, And to make it fresh, you get these new voice lines, you get these new dialogue options, and you get the new story evolve and unfold itself the more you do the runs. And it unfolds itself in ways that you can't predict and don't expect, because it disguises it so well. Even like, when I'm playing with my big gamer brain, my big game design brain here, even I'm looking for like, where's the trigger point where characters start appearing in the in the hall, I don't know what it's called, the big chamber hub world area. Where's the point where these characters start popping in here and then going away? What triggers Zeus to now say this line instead of this line, etc. And I can't, I'm really struggling to find where it's coming from. And because it's disguised so well, it just feels so dynamic that every time you do a run, you don't really know what's happening. If at any point you did a run, because obviously it's a roguelite, so the idea is continuously do runs, do hundreds of runs, ideally you love the game so much, do hundreds of runs. If at any point you get to a stage where the characters are saying the same lines over and over again until, let's say, you meet a threshold where they can now choose, where they now say a different dialogue option, if the game at any point hits that, then I'd be turned off by it. I'd be like, I've heard this line, skip. I've heard this line, skip. I've died again, new run. I've heard this line, skip. And I get annoyed by it. But I can't fathom how much writing there is in this game, because I played it for 50 hours and I never once found a place where the same two bits of dialogue come up one after the other, or even at all sometimes. It feels like every time a character has something new to say, or even if they don't say something completely new, the way they say it is different, and it just keeps it fresh, and it does make it feel like every run you do is different for this reason. And that's where the strength is. The gameplay itself, though, having said that, I think in other Supergiant games you could say, the strength is in the writing, don't worry about the gameplay. I think a lot of people said that about Pyre, but I would say in Hades, even if for some reason you hate the writing and the setting, which I don't really see how you could, but let's say you did, I think the loop, minute-to-minute gameplay loop, is outstanding. Everything feels so crisp, everything is so clear. The different levels of the underworld that you go up to try and escape are all brilliant. I thought the gameplay itself shone just as much as the story. And finally, since Bastion, we have a Supergiant game which is both excellent storytelling and writing and excellent minute-to-minute gameplay merged together. Fantastic. I loved every second of this.
I actually watched a sort of mini documentary on it. I'll let you talk in a second, guys, but I watched a mini documentary on how they actually made the system. So I think they said that they didn't actually have as much dialogue as Pyre, which surprised me. What they were most proud of was what they called the priority system, in that they have loads and loads of different triggers. So there's something like a base 20 lines or something each character can say. If nothing happens, you do a run and die immediately. But they will have just like hundreds of different triggers for like, okay, do you speak to Hades whilst having the bow? Or do you die to X enemy after this? Or, and they have a priority list of, okay, you finished a run. That has more priority than if you fished something out of a pond, sort of thing. And so it has all of these lines set up in a priority system so that it will feed down into like the next level of the priority if you've exhausted all of those lines that have a higher priority. And then it'll randomly choose one from the next priority list. And that is so wonderful that they managed to do it. I've only come across 2 different occasions in my, I think it was 99 runs, that the same line was said twice. And it was always just like a throwaway, like, oh hey, nice one, mate. And even then, like when you've exhausted most of the lines with like the gods, they just don't say anything and just go straight to the upgrade menu. It's like, okay, great.
It's one of the games that I rarely, if ever, skipped dialogue. And the fact that they've got all of this dialogue, it's like Disco Elysium levels of like, probably not quite as complex as Disco Elysium's dialogue tree is, but the fact you've got all that and it's all fully voiced does so much for the game. And like the story isn't too complex. It's very straightforward.
If you've heard of Greek myth, that saves a lot of time with these characters and that. You know Zeus is a dickhead who's like the god. You know Poseidon's a bit of a dickhead as well. He's like the brother, and Hades obviously doesn't like you understand it.
Exactly.
Osmosis.
The strength is really the characters more than the story. And it's like you meet these gods and you're like, oh, there's fucking Dionysus. He's the drunk uncle. And he's very got a cool. Like all of them are really cool and distinct. And then you actually get quite a bit of depth with them, especially when you do the romance side quests. I don't know if you end up doing those, Matt.
I think. Go on, talk about it more. I might have already devolved into it.
But it's like so you've got all these fucking super sexy gods and fucking and all that shit, and then you got Dusa as well, and she's clearly fangirling all over you, and like you expect like, oh, there's just gonna be some like fan service, and you get to kiss Thanatos, he. But it's like if you actually refuse them, or even if you accept them, it's not just like, oh, you kiss them and that's the end. It's like you actually have a relationship with them, and with Dusa especially, it's like, oh, no, I was just sort of overexcited to meet you and all this sort of stuff. I'm not really looking for a relationship right now, but I really hope we can remain friends.
She loves you as a person, but not physically at all. And it's just like, but she doesn't want it to ruin your relationship with her, and she doesn't want it to ruin your relationship with Meg and stuff. It's really interestingly how they did it.
And Zag himself, with Thanatos, if you turn him down, which I did because I'm not gay,
I did.
If you turn down Thanatos, he's like because it literally says romance option unlocked. You're like, oh shit! All of your dialogue then turns onto you coming onto him, and then if you turn him down, then like things get a bit awkward, and then you're like, hey man, I'm really sorry if I came across too strongly. I hope like everything is cool between us. It's like, don't worry, man. We've been friends for a long time, and we'll continue to be friends. And
they actually take care. Thing is that is the strength of the whole game, is that they take care with the little things. In that, you wouldn't think catching a fish would matter at all, but it does. Doing things like that, these characters will comment on it, or killing things with a bow, or with Artemis. That she obviously likes that as a huntress, and so there's things that she would be, they've taken care and think, what would all of these characters say to these things? Would it matter to them? And I mean, I don't know if you know this about the romance options, but you can have a threesome, and you
can. I know you can go out with each of them.
You can have a threesome with Thanatos and Meg, and
it's
amazing. Zag is just like, what are you guys doing in here? And they're like, come on, you idiot. And he's like, is this really alright? And they're like, yeah, I think it is. We're gods. And he's like, well, okay then. And it's great.
The funniest thing was when all the romance stuff starts, that like I think it's Achilles that says to you, you're a god, right? And they just fuck everyone, so it's absolutely fine if you don't want to be monogamous.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
He literally says, like, you being a monogamous god, like that's something new.
I'm very much in kind of all games I play, a very gameplay over story and over characters type person. I know lots of people are actually the opposite, but even I can help but be kind of invested in a lot of the characters. I think the setting helps a lot.
Absolutely.
Over previous games. The first time you start a run and you get a Zeus or whatever, and you're like, oh fuck! Obviously the artwork is all brilliant and lovely. But like I remember seeing like Zeus for the first time. I'm like, oh shit, that's Zeus. I wonder what Artemis looks like. What does Aphrodite look like? Yeah. What does Poseidon look like? And I remember on my first run through this game, I wasn't even thinking about builds or strategy really. I was like, oh shit, it's Poseidon. That's the Poseidon symbol. I've not done Poseidon before. I'm gonna smash my key on that because I want to see what fucking Poseidon looks like, and then how is he voiced and how does he act and stuff. And all like there's just obviously so many gods, and then you have all the side characters as well, and obviously then Hades himself, and then your mother at the end and things. So
that's certainly one of the strengths of having established characters instead of like completely created, because then everyone knows roughly these things. Like Aphrodite's, everybody knows she's the god of love, or Dionysus. You can even by his character design, if you aren't familiar with the god, you can be like, oh, that's the drunk man god. I get it. Okay.
And like Hermes gives you,
speed
the buffs, which are better speed and better dash and stuff, and it's all thematically entwined. It's brilliant. And as much as I will, emphasize on the characters and stuff, I still think it means almost it's as good as it is because the gameplay is just so good. Everything feels so tight. All the weapons are varied. I guess apart from maybe the gun, which I actually quite liked in the game. Apart from maybe the gun, there's sort of no standard weapon. They all kind of force you to do something different.
Yeah.
The sword obviously plays way different to the bow, which plays way different to the gloves, which are like the melee weapons where you got to get up close.
Yeah. And then you got the spear, which is literally distance based.
And then the shield, which has more of an emphasis on blocking and stuff. So it kind of covers all areas there. And then on top of that, the next layer to this sandwich is then, all right, so what do you do with the boons? Do you do something with stacks, like Dionysus' drunk stack thing, or Aphrodite's charm, or do you stack with the Hades Doom? Sorry, not Hades. What am I saying? Ares Doom, or Zeus's lightning bolts that then jump between enemies, and then what should I do to combine these? Why don't I have something that jumps between enemies on my normal attack, but on my special attack I'll do something that inflicts charm. So then you have that layer on top of that, and then on top of that you then have the upgrades which you get during your runs to your weapons. Like I know with the gun, for instance, you can change your special so that rather than it does damage in an area like a bomb that you fire up into the air and it lands on enemies, instead you can change that into a rocket, or you can change it so your gun doesn't just fire manually, it fires in 3-shot bursts, so you get more damage quicker, but then obviously you have to keep reloading those 3-shot bursts. And there's loads to think about, and you can really when you start stacking all of these decisions on top of each other, it just gets excellent. It feels so deep.
That combined with all the fucking passive upgrades it gives you, all the darkness and the keys and stuff, and ambrosia and all that shit, right from the beginning. Even the Titan's Blood and the diamonds, it just says, hey, you can passively upgrade Zagreus throughout the entire run, and you'll just be stronger generally, and it makes sense. And even now, after 99 runs, I still haven't unlocked everything fully that I could. It's really good. It's really tight gameplay wise, and there's so much stuff to keep being invested. There's every run, it's there's something new to do, something new to come back and improve, to change. I did find that after a while, after run 50, I've beaten Hades a few times. I couldn't go back and do more than 3 runs before I got a little bit bored and wanted to turn the game off. But I did want to turn the game back on again and do it.
Yeah, I think on that it kind of falls into the trap where it's a rogue with you're supposed to do runs after runs after runs. So these runs can't be too long because you're supposed to start and finish them, and once you finish, you're supposed to go again. So they can't be too long. Which then means that they have to be sort of just the 3 levels that happen and then the final boss level. But then it means you keep seeing those 3 levels over and over again. Yeah. So it does fall into that trap. But, like I said, I think it keeps it fresh and interesting with all the other stuff it does on top, with the options you have during gameplay, and then all the character dialogue trees that unfurl out to you while you do your runs. Yeah. So
Heat especially does a lot to spice it up. Literally towards the end as well.
That's the only thing that if I had to say this 9.5 to 10 out of 10 game, if there was anything to improve, it'd just be I wish there was slightly more enemies, or a few more enemies, or even a couple of new areas that get introduced,
or a branching path.
That's the only thing that I could think of, and then I'd be okay, or even then maybe I don't know, maybe make each floor slightly shorter, but you can't because it's so well balanced. I don't know, this is very minor nitpicks, but I'm still enjoying the moment-to-moment gameplay, and when you get instead of Isaac, when you get a massively good build, you go, oh shit, I'm gonna kick everything's ass.
And then the next 10 runs after that is just complete shit every time. But for some reason, the endorphin rush you get when you get a good run in Isaac or whatever is enough to keep you through. This one is much more consistent. You sometimes get OP ones, but you're never fucking being dragged through the dirt with fucking dog shit bones. Because there are none, really.
I felt that.
You definitely get some good ones. Yeah. There are some shit ones, but it's not too big a deal. But I think Matt really nailed it when he said, like, this is one of the few games in recent memory where I've been able to turn off my designer brain and just like get swept up in the story and the characters and everything, and just like play it. It wasn't until very, very late where I was actually like thinking about a lot more about builds and like spawn chances and all that sort of shit, and what I'm trying to specifically do, very specific types of builds. So it's great casually. It's great if you want to challenge yourself with the heat stuff, especially. Very fucking good game.
Yeah, I even like that they contextualize after you beat Hades 10 times for what is an ending. They even contextualize you still going back and doing the runs. Yeah. It makes sense as a Greek tragedy.
Perfect.
And just before we move on to just like the final thoughts on it, when I first heard Zagreus, I thought, oh no, this guy is going to be a pompous nonce, or like a really annoying prick. But he isn't. He's actually a really well voice acted character with decent, and he's not annoying at all. He just is. He's just a bit smarmy, but is genuinely seems to be a nice bloke. And I thought that was a nice surprise. I was really when I started thought I was going to not like him. And it's Darren Korb, the bloke who does the music, who does his voice and Skelly's voice. Very interesting.
Yeah, Zagreus felt like a breath of fresh air for me as a protagonist. A protagonist which speaks and has a personality is kind of that you play as. Is a bit rare in video games actually. When you think about
character creative.
But not only that, I love that the story isn't that the world is ending and that you need to save the world and you're the only one that can do it. I love that it's more grounded that you're just trying to see your mum is effectively the goal. And I love the way he reacts to things. He's calm when he needs to be. He's not calm when he needs to be. Not all characters have to be turned up to 10. Sometimes Zagreus is like, you're right, mate, and stuff. And it just goes a long way. As a final point from me on Hades, and Otis did touch on this, the reason why it's my game of the year, and I feel the same way about Celeste, actually, when that came out, is that, like Otis said, it's a game that perfectly merges the story it's trying to tell through its gameplay, which seems like something which all games should do, but very rarely do. They definitely said, this is the gameplay. It's about runs that you do over and over again in a loop. So we need to tell a story that fits that.
Yes.
And they do it perfectly. And it's just so good that both the gameplay matches the story you're trying to tell. And, they could have easily done it so it's like a roguelite, and then if you get you hit 5 runs, you get a cutscene. You do 10 runs, you get a cutscene. You do 15, you get the final boss, or something like that, right? But it's every single run. Even if you die during the run and you fail the run, the story will continue, at least in some way, because the characters now say something different. New characters appear in the hub world. Even just like a little thing for me was when the second kind of boss that you do on the run is that it's the
name changes.
Snake. Yeah. The snake, the snake rock demon thing. It's a snake, but it's made out of rocks.
The bone hydra of
it's called
it's learning.
The bone hydra, right? Yeah, except this is actually my point. So on the first run, you do it. Zag's like, I don't know who the fuck this is. This is scary. On the second one, you do it, and he starts to calm down a bit. By the time you're so good at the game, as you've progressed as a player, Zagreus has also progressed with you. And Zagreus is no longer, you're no longer fucking scared of the second boss in the game, because you can just beat it easily, because you know what you're doing now. Zagreus is the same. And then Zagreus turns from being scared about this bone hydra to giving it like a pet nickname of Lerny. And he's like, oh, hey, Lerny, I've come to destroy you again. And it matches perfectly how you feel, because this isn't the first time you've seen the bone hydra. So you're no longer like, oh, fuck, it's a bone hydra. You're like, oh, it's that bone hydra who I'll easily beat again on my run up to Hades at the end. And that kind of is a great example of how they merge how the player feels and how your protagonist feels with the gameplay. Yeah, loved it.
It's very witty dialogue. I do agree. They're very good. They do this, like you said, Matt, they do that sort of like Nintendo thing of they design the gameplay first and then they think of a story that will fit to make it all work. And they're Supergiant back on top. What can you do?
And
they
to
make,
such
they
a
make
stagnant
gods feel
genre.
so human.
Yeah, and roguelites have been so stagnated and overdone recently, and the fact that they've done something really, really outstanding with it is fantastic.
I can't see how roguelikes go from here. I think
for real. Right.
This is the pinnacle. This is it. It's done.
So yeah.
Who's everyone's favourite god? Just before we. It's
Oh, nice.
It's Dionysus, isn't it?
Mine was literally Dionysus.
Yeah. What, you talking about personality-wise?
Yeah.
Who'd you like running into?
I like Artemis because she's super. She's
what a shocker!
What?
Oh, it's like the tomboys got him.
He's got me. Fuck you. Good game.
My second choice would have literally been Aphrodite. So
you fucking simp. Simping for Aphrodite is the oldest form of simping, to be fair.
I'm for Meg, mate. Give me more Meg.
I like
that
bitch
to me.
BDSM jazz once again.
Yeah. Also, here's another great thing. You know, Tisiphone or something. The other is Fury Sifter. If you
he teaches her.
If you fight her enough, she starts learning words. Like she goes,
Oh really?
So
I never
good.
even saw that.
He's
this game.
He takes about 10 runs and he starts teaching her. He's like, come on, say Zag. She's like, Zag. And it's like,
Zerda.
And then she does. And then from then on, she's like, Zag. It's so good. I love this game. Now, I'm sure there's so much I've missed, so much I've not done. But I couldn't beat Hades on 10 heat, so that's...
Actually, there's one thing that I know none of us, or barely anyone in the world, has experienced. It's that once you do all of the epilogue, or it's some trigger where you are unlocking titles, you know what I mean? Where Hades is like, you have to pay back all your damages and shit.
Yeah.
If you do all of that, which is it's a lot. There's a lot of fucking shit you have to pay to do that. And then when you get to the end of it, all you get is title and like upgraded UI and stuff. But you do get a dialogue with Hades. It basically says, "Well, I've done all of that now. What? I guess I." And Hades is like, "Yep, thank you for paying back, like giving back to the realm in which you live." And he's like, "Well, it is my home." And it's like, "Yes, and it's the only one we've got." And I thought that was very sweet. It's all about family. And in the end, that's all you fucking got.
Hades,
it, bitch.
What an amazing character he is, though. Just in terms of like genuine storytelling, really good, and it really made me like him as a character.
I like everyone.
Yeah. Thanks,
Good
Supergiant
game.
Games. Thanks. Make
Hades.
more games like this. Just don't make another Transistor.
Don't.
Hades, Game of the Year.
Game of the Year.
Game of the year.
Cheers.
Dark Souls 1.
Only is my Dark Souls 1 Game of the Year. Only Game of the Year that didn't come out this year, but I played this year. Hades Game of the Year that came out this year.
Well done, Dark Souls. Game of the Year. Well played.
Well done, Dark Souls. Super Mario Bros. 2.